we can we can just kind of roll into it like a Joe Rogan podcast or something. Like it doesn't have to be like, you know what I mean?
That's true. I agree. Yeah. All right. I guess we can start then. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. So I'm Bardstocks. I started up this Twitter profile that I have probably, I think it was like early 2021, but I had been in crypto pretty much as far back as 2017. And I didn't really fully immerse myself in crypto until around 2019 at like the bottom of the bear market. And so I ended up catching the bottom and, trading crypto ever since, basically, is kind of where I stand on things. Aside from that, just a brief summary, I attended school, I got my degree in business administration, and then ended up moving to Austin and did accounting, and then I started crypto trading full time, and now I'm just really into like Solana and Solana NFTs because I really think Solana as a blockchain is just, I think it is the future of smart contracts platforms. I think it's just leagues, and it's so much further ahead than everything else, and so I'm really passionate about talking about it as well as just talking about the general space as a whole. So that's pretty much definitely. That sums up me.
All right, perfect. That leads into the first question I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you, for people that have no idea what crypto is, how would you describe Solana, or what Solana is, and what makes it so much better than all these other alternative coins or even Bitcoin?
So yeah, to try to cut it short and sweet is just so difficult. But basically, Bitcoin is the first form of digital scarcity that ever existed. There are, how do I put that? So for example, if you were to go on your computer and you save, you created a picture file or whatever, there's only one of that file, right? But then, technically speaking, if you were to send that file over to someone else and then that person copied it and it's on their computer and then they post it online, and then all of a sudden all these other people save that file, and then there's a bajillion different pictures available on thousands of computers of that copy, right? And so there wasn't really such a thing as digital scarcity prior to blockchain innovation. And so cryptocurrency and Bitcoin is essentially a way to it's a way to create digital finite true scarcity that can be verified and that is audible on basically a decentralized open ledger that anyone can check out and read. And so that's a lot of complicated mumbo jumbo for basically that, if we transact value between each other peer to peer, people can see it, the money is verified, and there's no way to duplicate.
There's no way to fake it. So I send you a transaction, a Bitcoin miner who's essentially a third party who's unrelated to us verifies the transaction. And for verifying essentially this is how I usually describe Bitcoin mining. So I'm sending you a piece of code, which is Bitcoin, and then a miner is verifying that code actually is Bitcoin, and they get a very small fee, which is what the whole mining aspect is. So it's this ecosystem of people being able to transact with each other in a almost, I don't want to say flawless way, but in a very secure way to do so. Because if I send you Bitcoin, you're going to get it no matter what. Same if you send me Bitcoin. I can't fake it. You can't fake it. Everything on the blockchain is public. You can't send me fake Bitcoin. It hits my wallet and I'm unsure that this is actually money. You know what I'm saying? That's usually how I try to describe the basis of how it works.
Yeah, exactly. So that's Bitcoin, right? So I mean, that's a really it's hard to do it justice in only a couple minutes, but what are we going to do? Exactly. And so then Ethereum is kind of an extension of that, where Bitcoin is really about transacting Bitcoin currency between individuals, and that has a monetary value, and that's really all that Bitcoin does. I mean, ordinals came out recently, so there's that, but really it was just about transferring Bitcoin between wallet to wallet. But Ethereum now is an extension of that, where, well, firstly, Bitcoin only had around 7 transactions per second, and so it's really limited in terms of block space. So it has a pretty archaic model, and so Ethereum is kind of an upgrade in some ways. Now, I don't want people to slice and dice me up and say, well, is it an upgrade? I mean, Bitcoin is the store of value, blah, blah, blah. And so we're not really trying to bet on that. We're just... Yeah,
in terms
we're
of
just not,
technologically speaking, it's definitely an upgrade. Bitcoin is just a storage, like
yeah.
I'm a storage of wealth, but Ethereum has smart contracts. I mean, Bitcoin also does have smart contracts. Technically, they did have NFTs for a long time too, prior to. Contrary to what a lot of people think, they've been around for like 6 years, but nobody really knew about them, and it's not efficient. It's not practical. Ethereum changed that, but the thing with Ethereum is all these high gas fees. It's insane, and that's probably we're going to lead into how Solana fixes that. But if you want to
Yeah,
dabble a little bit more into
exactly.
Ethereum, and because I have
Well,
I personally have you ever heard of fractionals, like fractional NFTs, right? So I created a fractional NFT collection, and the amount I spent on the NFTs was about $4,000. The fees that I spent on moving everything together and actually creating the fractional was all in all $1,000. So 25% of my cost was literally just facilitating the transactions. And if I did that on Solana, it would be pennies on the dollar. So I have a
yeah,
real bias against Ethereum in terms of actually using the decentralized applications and stuff. And I feel like the barrier to entry is so expensive for like the regular person that most regular people will not want to use Ethereum. Because even me, I think of myself as somebody who's kind of at like an intermediary level when it comes to crypto, and I still don't really ever try to transact on Ethereum just because of the cost.
yeah, no. So that's exactly what I was going to get to. Is I mean, nobody really, transfers, I guess, NFTs, if you will, on Bitcoin. I think there is like rare Pepes and stuff like that. I think that's what you were referring to.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
other weird stuff on there, but no one really like knows about them. I think it's becoming a bit more prevalent now, but yeah, Ethereum really changed that. So Ethereum is not just simply about transacting the base currency or the native token, which is ETH, but it's also about transacting. It's also about transacting ERC20s, right? So you have all these other tokens that have been created on top of the Ethereum blockchain that aren't necessarily ETH itself, but have value based on the ETH price, or at least, I mean, they did at one point. Now it's like a bit more extended, and the markets aren't as simplified as that. But yeah, and then there's also NFTs as well on Ethereum. There's ERC 721s, I believe, and so Ethereum really expanded upon what it meant to have digital collectibles, and also what it meant to be able to transact value besides just cryptocurrencies. But now there's like NFTs, and there's other things you can do. But it's really archaic, like you said. Like ETH is only at 20 TPS, and because it's at 20 TPS, the block space is just so limited, but there's such high demand. And so in a bull run, like you'll end up paying like $300 to perform like a simple Uniswap transaction, and it's so absurd. And so like the reason why I'm so passionate about and so like big on Solana is because Solana has really changed the game. You pay like pennies to do anything. It's 4,000 TPS, right? It has Nakamoto coefficient of like 37 or whatever it is, which basically means that it has a pretty high level of decentralization already in terms of validators, and like everything about it to me is just a fantastic, huge push forward on the frontier of smart contracts platforms that we haven't seen for like over a decade. Like Bitcoin, like people are still like big on Bitcoin, but Bitcoin's only 7 TPS, and they have been able to kind of scale out those models. And they're talking about using rollups and stuff like that, but it's just even with rollups, they have such a difficult problem in these L2s with actually scaling out and performing anywhere close to the amount of transactions per second and user experience that Solana has. And so that's really like why I'm big on Solana.
Yeah, so you said Solana's TPS was 4,000. I'm going to correct you. I think it's actually closer to 40,000, and I think in times of less congestion, it's even faster than that. Because I just did a quick Google search to fact check myself, and according to CoinCodex.com, 2 months ago they said Solana TPS was 65,000, which is I'm assuming is due to less demand, and it's just more efficient that way. Second point, I agree with you on the whole layer 2 thing. I think L1s are going to win. I don't think layer 2s will have mass adoption the way other people think so. So for example, the other day I wanted to buy some ERC20s, and I didn't want to spend too much. Like I had like an extra $500 in my MetaMask wallet that was kind of just laying around. So I was like, we're pretty close to the bottom. Let me just buy some coins. So what I could have done is I could have, correct me if I'm wrong too, because I don't really use L2s too often. So I could have transferred all of my money to a layer 2, such as Matic, right, Polygon, and then transacted within that layer 2, and then brought it back to layer 1. And since I was only doing like $500 worth, I didn't think it was worth switching over, doing that for like 3 or 4 transactions, and then switching back and still losing a bit of money on it. So what I ended up doing was just using Uniswap, and then I ended up paying probably close to, I did 5 different transactions, so I just threw 100 into 5 different ERC20s. So I ended up paying 10% on each transaction, which 10% might not sound like a lot, but for a simple conversion, 10% is crazy. Or I mean, $10 might not sound like a lot because it's 100 per coin transfer or whatever. But still, 10% can add up over time. And if you're like a regular person, another reason why I didn't actually go to the layer 2 is because since I do it so rarely, I didn't feel like it was worth my time, like making sure that I was doing it correctly. I was like, I'll just eat the Uniswap or the gas fee on this.
Yeah. So to clarify on your first point, Solana right now is at 4,000 TPS, but when you read articles that say like it can get to like 40,000 TPS or something like that, that's really just like, you know, an estimate of what they think it can get to, not what it's actually gotten to. Now it's possible that with the upscaling of hardware, if the validators kind of increase their well, I mean, if they increase their hardware, sorry, I lost my words there. If they increase their hardware, if everyone does that, then I guess technically it can, you know, go up in TPS is my understanding. I'm not like a validator expert, by the way, just so we're clear. I've heard things like Firedancer being able to increase it to 1 million TPS, you know, but it's all kind of like unproven at the moment. You know what I mean? This is all theory. It's all on paper. So we don't really know, but I'm sure at some point we will get to that, you know, situation where maybe we do get to 40,000 TPS, and I wouldn't put it past the foundation. I wouldn't put it past Solana Labs or anyone really to be able to get to that point, because truthfully, like at some point or another, if blockchains are the real deal, if they are like legitimate pieces of tech that everyone ends up actually using, then, you know, I mean, we have billions of people that are going to be transacting value. Maybe, I mean, that's like the optimistic view, right? Maybe they end up holding on to all this value, and maybe they end up, you know, transacting on a day-to-day basis. And we need a high TPS in order to facilitate that, right? So maybe that's what ends up happening. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, if you check current stats, it's around 3,877 TPS. So, but that's still phenomenal, and it's still a massive, like, it's so much better than everything else right now. But yeah, as far as layer 2s go, I agree. The UX is terrible. Bridging over costs so much money. Or not, I don't know. I would say bridging over costs a fair amount of money, like compared to what you would think it would cost.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the bag size too, right? Like if you're somebody who's moving over like 50K or something, like 50K USD, then it might not seem like that big of a deal. But if you're like some dude in like Venezuela who has like $30 USD equivalent of whatever their currency is, it like we want mass adoption worldwide. So I don't think these L2s can really support that just based on that alone. But with Solana, it's literally pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, no. So that's the issue, right? And that's the thing that people aren't really seeing. I think a lot of people that are in Ethereum, that are like huge Ethereum bugs, they don't really understand that like no one can afford this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, the little guy never going to be able to get into this. Like the fact that you're going to have to pay hundreds of dollars to transact each time. You have these like multi-millionaires that are, you know, totally comfortable doing that, and they just don't care. Like they're like when the bull run is at like max, like peak point, like you will be shocked to see how much they burn. I think I swear I remember like 8 figures, possibly 9 figures burned for a single NFT mint, like in transactions. It was just so ridiculous. Like, yeah, it was like almost 9 figures or 8 figures burned in.
It doesn't seem sustainable at all. That doesn't seem like a long-term. Yeah. What I think long-term models for anything financial or monetary, that just doesn't make sense. It's like the cost of transaction is just so high. And I love Ethereum. Ethereum last bull run is actually what made me the most money, and it's second to Bitcoin, right? It's essentially, I view Bitcoin as a quote-unquote blue chip. I view Ethereum in the same light. I think if Bitcoin goes up, I think Ethereum's always going to go up. vice versa, unless something insane happens, like an attack on Ethereum, which I think is very unlikely. But I hold those two in the same regards. So I don't want to shit on Ethereum too much, but when it comes to practicality, it's just not there, especially because of Ethereum. If Ethereum was so good, we wouldn't have L2s in the first place. Just straight up, there would be no need for an L2 if Ethereum itself was as valuable as a lot of people think it is.
Yeah, and so they try to make the argument that, well, okay, ETH isn't that scalable, but if we have these L2s with rollups, like maybe it's possible. But I just have to be honest and say that, you know, it's just not feasible for a lot of people. Now, don't get me wrong, though, Ethereum like really innovated and really changed the game in terms of smart contracts platforms. Like it is the one that really made a difference in terms of you know, it discovered NFTs, it discovered Uniswap. There were so many cool innovations that came out of it.
Every decentralized application, right, started on Ethereum.
Yeah, and so it like, you know, I have to give my kudos to Ethereum, but it's just the issue is that it's been out for so long and it's just not scaling. It's just not that usable. And the more people that are trying to use it, the more, you know, gated it becomes. Basically, it's like and like you have these multi-millionaires that are, you know, transacting on it, but then everyone else gets left out. And so the thesis for Solana is that all that extra block space that Solana has, all the little guys, all the people are just going to go to Solana, and that's to me that's like a certainty. If things don't change, I think the ETH bugs are just wrong. I think the, you know, everyone's going to want to go to Solana.
Yeah.
I don't want to admit it. It's just so fast. The TPS is great. It's all the same stuff. It just runs better. It just has such a significantly better UX by magnitudes. So
I have two questions. Well, one's not really a question. So your background, you said, was in you have a 4-year in business admin, then you got your MBA. So I'm sure you studied quite a bit of economics. My background's econ, or I have a 4-year in econ. So what you just mentioned with Ethereum, like the more people that use it, it's literally worse off for everybody, because Ethereum, the network gets congested, and then we pay higher gas fees and the transactions take longer. In economics, it's literally called the law of diminishing marginal utility. And it's like long-term thinking, a coin or anything with the law of diminishing marginal utility cannot scale as fast as something else. So with Solana, that's really not the case. And even if it was the case, Solana is so instant that if I send anybody a transaction on the Solana network, by the time I click send, it's already in their wallet. So even if it slows down a little bit, it's like, all right, well, I might have to wait 5 seconds. And even those numbers, I'm sure somebody can do the calculation on how many transactions need to be occurring for that to even happen. Point two, going back to the L2 bridging or whatever. So I didn't think about this until just now. What do you think? So there's such a barrier to entry based on because of knowledge and because how expensive it is. But what if somebody created a platform where the UI was really seamless, almost in a way that you didn't know what was going on in the background? So for example, like, if you go to the grocery store and you swipe your credit card, you know that you're paying money to buy these goods, but most people don't fundamentally understand what's happening in the background, where this transaction gets sent to like some server, and then it takes 7 days to verify that the transaction, whatever, and then whatever. So, but most people don't understand the back end of that, right? They just know they swiped this card, they paid for their stuff. So the argument for crypto being the backing for that is kind of similar. It's like nobody needs to know that it is crypto being used. Because it won't change their lives in any way. They still go to the grocery store, they still swipe, tap to pay, whatever. They get their groceries, they leave. So imagine somebody made maybe like OpenSea had an iPhone app, which they have an iPhone app now, but they had a way to bridge from ETH to Polygon. If the UI was different though, and like somebody was able to create a product where you don't even know that you're bridging to an L2 and then transacting on the L2, I feel like that would be the only way that we would have mass adoption. Maybe not the only way we'd have mass adoption, but it would definitely improve the odds of having mass adoption. I think a lot of people view crypto as this like really hard to know, you have to be super tech literate to even use it. But I think if it's one of those things that just becomes straight backend, where people utilize the blockchain technology, especially something like Solana or like Ethereum smart contracts. Either way, I think they would still use Solana just because of the TPS and the cost. But maybe it could be somebody's prerogative to build a backend UI, or not backend UI, but backend using Ethereum. So what are your thoughts on that? Having L2s kind of be seamless for like the everyday person?
Well, so the issue is always going to be that that person, whenever they performs some kind of transaction on an L2 or an L1, someone has to pay for it. So even if it's all happening in the background, they either are getting hit by a fee or their service provider is getting hit by a fee. Now, what is more likely would be perhaps if the service provider simply, has something like, okay, so when you think about transacting on like an exchange like Coinbase, right? Basically, they when you transfer crypto from wallet or from one address to, actually, well, what's a good way to put this? So when you perform, let's say you perform a swap on Coinbase, right? They don't actually, like, you'll notice sometimes that they don't actually move around your cryptocurrency from one wallet to a different wallet when you perform that swap. What actually ends up happening is, in order to not incur any fees, Coinbase just marks you off as saying, okay, this is your balance now, and this is how much you can withdraw, and this, so nothing is actually happening in the background, and nothing's happening, I guess, on the other side. It's just that they've marked their database such that you can't withdraw that crypto anymore, or this is your new balance. So what would probably end up happening is, I mean, they might have custodians. So you would deposit your money into just some random wallet that the custodian controls, and then if you transact with Ethereum by purchasing something, then they would just mark your balance down. But you wouldn't actually be in control of your own ETH. Is the problem? So you want to have self custody. So the issue is either you're going to have to give up self custody in order to perform these transactions, like purchasing something from the grocery store on Ethereum, or someone's going to have to pay that fee each time, either on an L1 or an L2. Does that make sense? And so the more profitable model is for the custodians to just hold it into one address and then just mark your wallet down. And technically, in that circumstance, if the custodian somehow goes insolvent, then you won't be able to have your money anymore. And so that kind of defeats the whole ethos of crypto, if that makes sense.
I might be thinking about it I mean, what if you had a debit card that you loaded up with USDC on Solana network, right? And then when I tap to pay my credit card at the grocery store, the same way that, let's say I typed your wallet address into Phantom and I sent you USDC, it would do that in the background and then send that USDC to, I guess, the grocery store, right? For example.
Right. So what's happening is, so like with Solana Pay, my understanding, so this, I haven't used it, but my assumption is that when you perform a transaction with Solana Pay and it facilitates the purchase, it's the same thing. Either you're paying but you're either paying like a small, like less than a penny for the transaction, like a small amount of SOL or whatever to do that transaction, or a custodian is kind of holding on to it. But I think with Solana Pay, you have full custody. So there's pretty good odds that you just end up spending that 0.0005 SOL to perform that transaction, and then you send the money over to Solana Pay, and then they facilitate the rest of the payment processing. So I mean, that's pretty much what ends up happening. But there's still a fee paid, which is the main thing to take into account here. The problem is with Ethereum, if you try to do that, if you tried to do that on Ethereum, you would have to pay a fee, right? I mean, there has to be a movement of crypto from your wallet. So
I'm just trying to think of it through so the Solana Pay thing to me makes sense because like debit cards and credit cards have around a 3% transaction fee right now that I believe all the merchants pay for. So even if, like, let's say I swipe my debit card, there could be a quick little, like, yeah, I guess you could pay the 0.005 Solana fee, but I'm trying to think of it in a way where somehow the grocery store, whoever the merchant is, like reduces that from your total like receipt. So that way
okay,
they essentially are paying the transaction.
Yeah, so think about it this way. Okay, so the USDC is in your wallet, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so but when you perform the transaction, you send the USDC over to Solana Pay, right?
What if it was just directly to the grocery store, and then once like that transaction confirmed on the blockchain, that's when your receipt prints out?
Let's say it's to the grocery store, right? But in order for that USDC to be sent over to the grocery store's wallet, what has to happen?
Like
you have to be able to, you have to pay the transaction fee from your own wallet, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, because there's no way to transfer the USDC otherwise. So I mean, so that's basically what ends up happening. Um, and if you were to be on Ethereum, it's the same thing. Imagine you have USDC in your wallet and you try to transact on Ethereum, but you have to send the USDC over to the merchant. Then you end up paying like, you know, whatever it is, $50 or something.
Yeah, it would be ridiculous on Ethereum. What if somehow the back end was an L2, and I'm not even sure how much L2s save on transaction costs, which I don't think would be that significant to the point where you'd be able to use them in a day-to-day thing. Where was I going with that? But yeah, that was kind of my
help you out. So like we could go to, for example, let's just check Matic transaction fees right now. Like, what is the Matic transaction fee at the moment? It says one transaction service fee is 0.03 Polygon. So I think that's around 3 or 4 cents. So if you were to, if you were to use Polygon, if you bridged your assets over to Polygon, or if you were to, for example, use Arbitrum, I mean, we can check Arbitrum as well. So Arbitrum fees. Let's see.
Arbitrum, so yeah, I guess if you use Matic right now, it's less than 4 cents, about 3.5 cents. So I guess that's not too bad actually. I thought it might still be in the dollars range, which would be a little crazy.
Well, so I mean, the thing is though, is that so you have to pay like 3 or 4 cents per transaction, right, on Polygon. But the thing is with Solana is you still are paying 100 times less than that, right? So it's like, no matter how you slice it right now, no matter how you put it, it just doesn't make sense to use any other chain for commerce. It's just, I don't know, it's just totally ridiculous.
Have you ever heard of Digibyte?
I think, dude, Digibyte such a long time ago.
It was it was probably, I don't know, 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago.
Yeah, Digibyte was like definitely a 2017 shitcoin.
Yeah, like, so Digibyte actually is the funny story, bro, about how I got into crypto. So I used to work for this bank. I won't say their name, but I used to work in their like fraud department. So if like somebody's credit card got stolen, they would call me, and this one dude calls me, and he needed also if like there was like a fraudulent transaction that occurred, they would call in so we could like waive the clearance so they can actually perform the transaction. And back then, like, crypto wasn't as big as it is now, so a lot of those transactions did get flagged. So this dude calls me and he's like, hey, I need you to just let this transaction go through. And I'm like, all right, sounds good, like, just ask a few questions. And then he's like, I don't know if you're into investing at all. I'm like, yo, I'm like, you got the right person on the team for this call. And then he tells me, he's like, oh, I got a buddy who knows a guy, blah blah blah. He told me to invest in Digibyte. It's at like 2 cents, like whatever. So that actually is the reason why I got into crypto, because of that phone call. And shout out to that guy. I wish I knew who he was, because I would love to have a conversation with him now and thank him. But back then, I got into Digibyte at like 2 cents or so, and then I think it ended up rallying to about 20 cents. And the only real utility case for Digibyte was its transaction speed was so quick. And you can build smart contracts on Digibyte. I don't think many people are doing so right now. But then, like, that was only one use case, was essentially speed. But then something like Solana comes along, and they have similar, maybe a little bit slower, I don't know the exact numbers, but really similar, could be faster than Digibyte, and now Digibyte just gets completely wiped out.
No, I mean, well, so, the thing is, there's a lot of misinformation in crypto. One of my friends that isn't as savvy, he sent me a text saying, man, I heard Polygon has like a more transaction speed than Solana. Like, oh, why are we in Solana when we can just go to Polygon? The problem is that I'll be honest with you. I could double check, but I promise you that Digibyte is probably nowhere close to Solana. There are pretty much no blockchain right now. So every blockchain talks up its own game, right? Every community is like, oh yeah, it's like 1 billion transactions per second, blah, blah, blah. But no one's actually gotten there, right?
The only thing was they were 40 times faster than Bitcoin. That's what I remember. That was their whole branding. They're like, Bitcoin block processes in 10 minutes. Okay. Digibyte transactions process in 15 seconds. So we're 40 times faster. That was their whole. That was like, and I don't even, after this conversation with you, I truly thought Solana TPS was 40K, but I didn't know that was like the maximum limit that it can reach. So I don't even know what
No.
Digibyte's numbers probably are.
Yeah.
Probably a lot lower.
Yeah, everyone kind of tosses out all these numbers saying, "Oh, it's 40K TPS. Oh, it's this TPS." But when you look at the block height of each blockchain, and you look at the the time it takes to process each block, and then you just look at the actual TPS. I mean, that's the only way to really find out like which chain is actually fast. Because if you read these like news articles or you hear people talk, everyone's grifting, everyone's talking up their own bag. But then when you actually check it, you're like, wait a minute. Like none of these are
Yes.
anywhere near as fast as they postulate, or it's like it's all theory craft. Everyone is just talking about the theory of it all. Like, oh, this is what it could get to, but we're not quite there yet. Now, let me just clarify something with Solana. It's at around 4K TPS, and it has gotten even higher than that. It's just that's like the resting TPS at the moment. That's what's actually being used. That's actually how many transactions are happening per second on the chain. If they wanted to, they can test the network and spam it just to see what it can get to. And I think it's gotten to some pretty significant heights. I can't give it like exact numbers. But I feel comfortable in saying like the average, like what is normal for Solana is currently 4K, but it could absolutely get higher. I will say there's a lot of free extra block space, and so we won't really know until the chain is pushed to its limits when there's an actual demand and need for block space. So
all right, Solana TPS is 4K. Imagine. So would there ever be a point where, let's say, 100,000 transactions just occurred? Like, is there? I know Solana Network has gone down in the past. Is how much of that is affected by TPS? So, like, if for some reason 1 million people want to transact on this, would it shut the blockchain down, or would it just kind of put it in a queue? So, like, 1 second it's 4K, the next second it's another 4K until all those transactions are cleared.
So one of the first times that Solana went down was as a result of someone figuring out an exploit where they had to pay very minimal gas fees, if any. They basically abused a mechanic. I don't know the exact details, but they abused a mechanic that allowed them to pretty much perform transactions that were almost free. So even less expensive than what we currently have right now. And so they were able to the network at such a crazy amount that's what took down Solana the first time. So that that really how do I put this? That really exhibits the need and importance for gas fees. You really can't allow a blockchain to be able to just have free fee or have free gas. Because if you do that, then someone will push it as far as it can go and just overload the validators and just blow up everyone's computers, proverbially speaking. You absolutely need to have some gas fees, but pretty much at this point, if you were to try to spam the Solana network, at the current gas fees that it has, you would almost certainly burn out. You would burn out your balance before being able to provide any kind of significant, bump to the network. Aside from that, when Solana has gone down, it's usually because of a validator client issue. What ends up happening is Solana is trying to push the frontier of smart contracts platforms. And so when you're trying to scale out something that hasn't ever been done before, and when you're trying to do things that no other chain has gotten to the point of doing, 4,000 TPS is a huge accomplishment, right? Like it just on average on a daily basis, that's what it's at right now. Like when you compare that to Ethereum, which is only 20, that's 200 times the speed and like efficiency of Ethereum. And so they're just breaking down, they're breaking new ground. And so when it goes down, everyone kind of gets mad because they're quick to point fingers and they say, well, Ethereum's never gone down or Bitcoin's never gone down. Now, actually, both of them have experienced issues in the past. So there's that. But the thing is, when you're trying to explore the frontier, shit's gonna happen, right? And so, and we're in beta. Solana is in beta right now, even still. So, that's just how it is.
Yeah,
but,
I think it's funny when people trash Solana for that. I think about something like OpenAI, like ChatGPT, like they're building in public, right? They're not, like you said, it's in beta, and the best way to build is to build in public because you have real life feedback. So now you know like what the network can sustain, what it can't sustain, weaknesses, etc., etc. And I actually think that's good for Solana, that Solana's faced some shit, right? So the network has gone down. The whole SBF thing, which Solana I don't think should be tied to SBF anymore, but it still is in a lot of people's eyes. But it's like stood the test of time. Like it's still hovering higher than a lot of other altcoins. Like yeah, it's down significantly, but it's not as down as other coins are, which I think is like a true testament of the future of Solana. I guess we can lead into, so we talked about the network shutting down, and bro, if we talked about how good Solana was, we could talk about that like all day. So what are some other maybe negatives that we can think about Solana? So one is obviously it was shut down. Another narrative is that it's like a centralized coin. It has all this like centralized money behind it. And then I guess another talking point is the whole Sam Bankman-Fried thing. And a lot of people thought that when FTX went down that Solana had no future. Straight up, they were just like, Solana's done for, it has no future, which for maybe a few moments, I didn't believe it, but for a few moments, I entertained the thought. I'm like, damn, maybe it's time to get out of all these Solana NFTs and just all these Solana tokens and Solana in general.
Yeah, so my thoughts on like all the FUD that's pretty much gone around. I mean, the last thing I'll say, well, actually, yeah, I'll elaborate on what you just talked about. I mean, basically, there's a lot of information asymmetry. The reason why Solana went down as much as it did, and or when I say went down, I meant went down in price. Is that there's just a lot of misinformation out there. A lot of people thought it was just the scam coin being peddled by Sam. I mean, it's just let me just be clear that the space is really dumb. I hate to say it, like there's a lot of dumb people that just spout anything that they think is happening. And I'm not trying to sound snobby. I'm not trying to sound, but like people are quick to just make assumptions about what's actually going on. But it's actually not the case. Yeah, Sam had like a large position in Solana. He was an investor, but Sam pretty much on the day to day doesn't have any control over the Solana blockchain. It's very much its own thing. It's its own living, breathing organism, if you will. And regardless of whether or not Sam is there, it doesn't change the fact that this is the frontier of smart contracts platforms. Like this is it is the big kahuna. Okay, this is the real McCoy. All right, like it's very good. As far as actual negatives about Solana, I would say really the only negatives I would say is that we kind of have to deal with the fact that it is breaking new ground. So when it's breaking new ground, shit's gonna happen. Shit's gonna hit the fan. They're eating glass, so to speak. That's what they love to say. That's the phrase. They love to eat glass. They're running fast and breaking things. And it's very much experimental, but it's also the best we've ever gotten out of smart contracts. So as long as you're prepared, and as long as you're prepared for the chain to sometimes go down, because it is possible that happens in the future, but it's happening because they're trying to push out the frontier. They're creating new validator clients. They're testing out new things. They added fee markets. They're going to be adding stuff all the time, and something's going to end up happening that ends up ruining everyone's user experience for a day or two. But from what I've learned and what I've discovered is that everyone's assets are still everyone's assets are still safe. They're still sound. They're still in your wallet, and they're going to be able to just reboot the blockchain, no problem. It's just they're going to have to roll it back and change some pieces of the code that they had integrated. So they're going to have to make those changes prior. But that's kind of like the only downside, I would say. But that's why it's happening. It's not happening because it's a bad chain. It's happening because they're trying to innovate and they're trying to expand upon the current smart contracts frontier. So
yeah, I'm in full agreement on that. By the way, side note, how are you on time right now? I know you said like an hour or so.
Yeah. I got way too much time.
All right, cool. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't taking up too much of your time. I think we touched base a lot about Solana. Do you want to transition into talking about Solana NFTs? I kind of want to start with, I guess I really do want to talk about Degenerate Ape, but I kind of want to talk about what you consider like to be the blue chip Solana NFTs. I think personally, I'm really, when I think blue chip, I only really think three NFTs. I think Degenerate Ape, I think Aurories, and I think Solana Monkey Business. When I think blue chip personally, as somebody who got into crypto back in late 2019, early 2020, and I was around for that like run of the Solana NFTs, like that wave. I was there for that. Those are the only three that I'm thinking are the blue chips. Like I'm not putting Galactic Geckos in there. I'm not putting Thugbirds in there. I don't even know if Thugbirds are still around. I'm not putting DeGods in there just for the fact that they weren't really around when I was there initially. So I don't want to consider them a blue chip. And I'm wondering if you have any like opposing thoughts, or maybe we share the same sentiment about that.
Oh man, I could go on a rant about Solana NFTs for days. So I'm going to try to, I'm going to try to be as cordial as I possibly can, because the problem is with Solana NFTs is that a lot of communities are very, they're very sensitive to what I might say. So I'm going to try to be as careful as I can be. First and foremost, I love Aurory. I think Aurory is, well, not first and foremost, but it is in my top two for my personal favorites. Now, obviously,
that's great. That's good to hear. I'm glad we share. I'm sure our top two are actually the exact same. So good, glad on that one.
Let me just clarify that, my opinion and what I feel are my favorite NFTs doesn't have to be the end all be all. I've rationalized this out and thought it out quite extensively. I've really put in a lot of thought into what makes sense to be a blue chip NFT and what doesn't really make sense to be a blue chip NFT. But those two for sure are my favorites, and I can extrapolate on as to why. I'll just start with Aurory, and then I'll talk about Degen Apes. Degen Apes was my first mint, and it is very close to my heart. So I don't, I wouldn't put one necessarily over the other. Some DAA holders might get annoyed about that if I say that, but it's just I really like them both, so that's just how it is. But I more often than not rep DAA because it was my first NFT mint, so that's kind of how it went down. But anyway, so Aurory has the biggest war chest. They have a really grand vision of creating their own IP. They have over 60 team members that are, veteran game devs from the industry, from like Warner Bros, mostly from Ubisoft, and then there's like a couple other companies, like here and there, like that people have come from. But really, it's a really experienced team that is building this game. And so
you played that game, by the way?
Huh?
Have you ever played the game?
Oh yeah, I've played Tactics.
I've never played it. I wanted to get into it, but I've just been so busy this week. I watched gameplay on YouTube, and it kind of seems like, so when I seen just the graphics on Twitter, I thought it was going to be like an open world, like Pokemon type game, and I was really excited. I watched some gameplay, and it looks more like a board game, chess style game where both sides have I think they're called NFTs, right? Where they're these monsters that attack each other, and whoever's NFTs survive is the winner. I've never played it. I've watched one quick gameplay. So if you can talk about how the game dynamics work.
I'll give a quick breakdown. So Aurory is basically a turn-based tactical RPG. It kind of is. It's like Final Fantasy Tactics, or it's like Fire Emblem. It's also kind of like Dofus. And it's a really fun game. Basically, you have these little creatures called NFTs that do battle for you. But that's only the battle, PvP segment of the game that occurs. Typically what's going to end up happening is you're going to be walking around in like I don't know if it's going to be like a true open world, but certainly you're going to be walking around in the world of Tokane and possibly Antic as well. And you're going to be controlling Max. Originally, it was named Sam, but after the FTX collapse, they were like, we got to change that name. That's not a good name to have. And so you're going to be traveling around.
I wonder who they named Max after, or why they chose Max. That's funny.
Yeah, well, I think Max is kind of gender neutral, maybe, but also it's just short and sweet. I don't know. It is what it is. And then Max is going to be accompanied by a creature named Helios. I don't really know all the details. I think Helios is also supposed to be an FD, but there is something very special going on with Helios that isn't necessarily. It's very different from the other NFTs. So who really knows what's going on with that? furball. But yeah, so that's kind of what's going on. There's a little bit of a Pokemon thing going on with it, but it's also a turn-based tactical JRPG. So I think it's pretty cool in that regard. But really, the big thing, the big takeaway is it's the biggest Solana NFT project by a long shot that nobody knows anything about. And when you compare the market capitalizations of other projects on like Ethereum that have GameFi going for it, that are actually these studios that have raised money trying to build like AAA games, Aurory is just so undervalued and so underpriced compared to those, that it's a surefire bet for me that it's going to end up doing well in the future. And so that's kind of, I mean, this is not financial advice, by the way. It's just, but
no
that's what, yeah, yeah. Don't risk money you can't afford.
None of this is FA. Just to make it extremely clear, none of this is financial advice.
But from my personal opinion, that's why I really like Aurory. Like Aurory it's grand. It has a grand vision. It has a big team. It has an actual team that is trying to build something. Right? It's not entirely community based, and it's really trying to build out an industry grade IP that could break into the mainstream and become a popular phenomenon. That's like, it has that kind of potential if it can get there. That's why
agree.
I
think the community for Aurory is amazing too. Like I just what my profile picture is now. I just bought this Aurorian on Sunday, and then all I did was tweet and say, like, I don't even think I hashtagged Aurory or anything, and I ended up getting like 30 likes on the picture, on the profile, on the tweet itself, and like 10 replies, which I usually wouldn't get if I just changed my profile picture. So I think the community is there for sure. I think a lot of people share the same sentiment you do when it comes to that. I really hope that we do get a really dope like free roaming RPG type game. I thought the board game thing that I saw was the only component of the game, so I guess I will check it out for sure.
That's kind of like the PvP aspect. That's like, when you engage in a battle with another player or something, that's what it's going to look like. But otherwise, you're going to be able to control a character, walk around, run around. There's also going to be an online mode where you can kind of talk with other people using your Aurorian NFT. So the one that you have right now, you'll be able to control that character and be able to move around in an open space with other players and talk to them. So there's going to be a little bit of everything going on. So that'll be interesting and fun.
Aurory paid homage to Sam, right, by naming the main character after him. They also paid homage to him by, well, how many?
No, they didn't pay him. They didn't pay him.
No, pay homage, as in just like not pay him with cash or anything, like just like you know what I mean. They also had, I think, two Aurorian FTX, like two FTX branded Aurorians. Is that correct?
Yeah. So, so I ended up buying those.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was going to lead into. Yeah. How much did you end up spending on those?
So at the time, I thought Aurory was going to be, I thought FTX was going to be me and many other people. Okay, let's just say that me, Tom Brady, some Steph very Curry. Big companies, really thought that FTX was going to be like the Amazon of crypto, the Google of crypto. We thought that this was going to be like the big cheese. We just thought that this was the one, because if you kind of did if you gleaned over their statements or their revenue, like they were making 8 figures daily during the bull run, like with very little overhead. Like they were a money making machine, and it was like, man, these guys are really going to do it. And so when they released those honorary FTX Aurorians and they kind of gave them out, what ended up, in my brain, it was like, oh my God, wait a minute. So they didn't realize this either, by the way, but those were the first officially endorsed FTX PFP NFTs that they had ever given out, like the first official FTX like art NFTs. And it was for a game like Aurory that had raised $108 million for its IDO. I don't know if you really understand the grandness of it all, but it's like, no other team in Solana NFTs even has $10 million. So the fact that Aurory has $108 million, like, really just puts it in an echelon of its own of like, holy shit, this is the level of, grandness that it has. It's truly like it's the most underrated NFT project, I would say, ever. And I think very soon, maybe not this year, who knows, but eventually, like, all of a sudden everyone's going to figure it out and it's just going to blow up. But until that happens, I don't know. Anyway, so the point is this was the first NFTs that FTX had ever released as like art NFTs, especially in collaboration with another project. And so to me, like it showed that, I mean, these had a ton of provenance from my point of view. I was like, oh my God. And it also had Sam's resemblance. Excuse me. And so a lot of people at the time were like, man, Sam's probably going to be like the richest man in the world. Like he was only like 29. I think he was like, his net worth was like 20 billion or something like that. It was actually, I don't know if 20 billion is right. I don't know the exact number. I forget.
That's about right.
But
Like 20 to 30 bill.
yeah,
Somewhere around there.
yeah, it was some crazy amount of money. And it was like, what the, like how, like he's only 29 and he's already amassed this massive empire. And so it shared his likeness. And so with that, alongside the fact that FTX was the first officially, the first official FTX NFT collaboration in their art, I haggled my way down to only paying $400,000 for both of them.
Only paying 200K each for an Aurorian.
Yeah, I dropped. Yeah, because it's like, at the time too, the Helios NFTs had sold for around $300,000 to $400,000 each, and so it was like, okay, well, how much would be reasonable to pay for honoraries, especially ones with this much provenance? Because this could be like, this could be the Google of crypto. Imagine if Amazon released like only 2 like PFP NFTs. And it was just really ingrained like Web3 company, and it was just going to rule the world. And like, in that kind of situation, it's like, yeah, those are going to be worth a lot. Like, I know.
Yeah, I totally understand. Yeah, I completely understand why it was so enticing to buy back then, for sure. It just sucks that it ended up not working out.
Oh man, it was such a flop. Do you still have them? It was not on my bingo card that Sam would end up turning out to be this huge fraudster. Like he would just end up being this like him and the company would just end up having this massive hole in their balance sheet. And I refused to believe it until they paused withdrawals, and I was like, oh my God, like it's actually going to happen. And at that moment, I knew I was screwed out of $400,000. I was like, no way, because I was so sure that there was no way, because it just doesn't make sense, right? Like you're making 10 figures in revenue daily. Why would you ever like overextend yourself to the point?
You were smart enough to build a company from ground up, maybe not ground up, but you were smart enough to build a company to that level, and then your risk management was off, and then you fumbled customer funds. It's just insane. It sounded so unreal. In a weird way though, those FTX Aurorians still might hold a special place in history. So maybe 5-10 years from now, they might be worth a lot. Like looking back. That's the cool thing about NFTs or art in general. Like we really have no idea what the future holds for them.
Well, no. What ended up happening was, the thing is, FTX. Okay, let me rephrase. So Aurorians. So Aurory, they can't have the FTX brand in their game anymore. Like it's a bad idea to even include it in the game, right? Because it serves as like an inadvertent endorsement. It's like if you were to include, I can't think of like a good example of this right off the top of my head, but let's just say someone playing.
It's like playing R. Kelly's music at your like store or some shit. It's like, exactly. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, that dude's in prison now for doing something he really shouldn't have done with minors, right? And so it's like, you don't want to play his music. It serves as an endorsement, right? And so that's kind of the issue that Aurory was facing, their team. And they were like, okay, well, what are we supposed to do here? This guy dropped $400,000 on these 2 NFTs that we can't even include the likeness in the game anymore. We can't include the brand because imagine like 3 years from now, Aurory's big, and then people find out that there's FTX NFTs that are actually usable in the game and like are walking around. Like that's really not good, because, the thing is, Sam caused a lot of pain. Especially to one of the co-founders of Aurory. Sim ended up losing quite a bit of money, like most of his life savings. Now, fortunately, Aurory is totally fine, and Aurory still has its bankroll, and it's all well and good.
They took a hit too, right? They took like a $30 million loss or something around there. because of the whole thing?
Yeah, no. So Aurory took it was something around a $15 million loss.
15.
So not great. Now the good news is apparently 70% of those losses might be recoverable based on recent news, but we're not really sure what's going to happen until later down the road. But either way, so Aurory was like, well, we can't really do that, and so what ended up happening was Aurory created a 10th Helios. So there is a new ice Helios that is so that they've created for me. It hasn't been minted yet, but I would be trading in the FTX Aurorians for those. They ended up talking to the Helios owners and asked them. I didn't say anything to them, and I just I told the Aurory team and the Helios owners. I basically, well, not the Helios owners, but the Aurory team. I told them, don't really pressure them if they don't want to add another one, because let's be honest here, there was only supposed to be 9, and it's kind of a weird situation for them. But everyone, all the Helios owners agreed to have a 10th one created, so it was really cool for them to do that. And I
That's
still
amazing.
really
I had no idea that happened. That's amazing. Like,
yeah,
so you get to
yeah,
trade it. You essentially you're gonna burn the 2 FTX Aurorians, and then you'll get a Helios Aurorian. That sounds like a fair trade
yeah,
to me.
yeah. So I mean, the Helios NFTs have always sold for around $300,000. They've never sold for less than that. 300 to 400,000. So they were like, well, the easiest way to handle this is just to make another Helios and to get rid of the 2 Aurorians. And I pretty much paid the price for it. So I
Yeah.
think that was like the rationalization and a good way to make it whole. And it's really cool one because it's this ice one that has like water flowing all around it. It's a really cool one of one.
When you
So
bought your
yeah.
when you bought your Aurora, my bad to cut you off. When you bought your FTX Aurorians, did you buy it? Was it like an auction through Aurory Marketplace itself, or did you get them secondhand from somebody else?
No. So what ended up happening was FTX did the giveaway, and they gave away 2 of them. Right. So there's the FTX Aurorian number 1 and then number 2. One's the US version, one's the international version, and so it ended up. I believe it was this guy from Malaysia and a guy from China that received them. So they received them and they put them up on Solanart, which was like the exchange. It was the go-to exchange at the time, and they put them up for 2,000 Sol each. But it just didn't make sense to pay 2,000 Sol each for them, especially because the Helioses were going for that much, and these were honoraries, right? Now, in my opinion, I was still like pretty keen on trying to get them because I was like, well, they're honoraries, but they're like the first NFT collaborations that FTX has ever done. So if I can get these, then that would be, that I would love to get these for cheaper than that. And so I was willing to pay half the amount of a Helios for each of them. But I ended up haggling with this Malaysian guy, and he was like, okay, like 1,000 Sol. What about 1,100? Can you do 1,100? And they were like, not. They didn't want to do 1,000. They were like, but we'll do 1,100 Sol each. That was when Sol was like around $200, or it
And
was
those
like
were
170.
giveaways, right? So those
Yeah,
dudes got them for free.
it is probably the biggest payoff anyone has ever gotten for a giveaway for NFTs.
I'm
Like,
not sure how
I
the
have to admit.
economy in Malaysia is, but essentially a free $200,000. Just I don't know
Yeah.
why they would haggle you for an extra 100 Sol. Just sounds so crazy. Short-term
Oh,
thinking. That's
well,
like penny pinching.
yeah, I don't know.
Penny
I
wise,
think,
pound foolish, man.
I think they wanted a clean 1,000 Sol because they'd have to, they're going to be losing some money to royalties at the time. So they lost a little bit of, they lost like 5% to the Aurory royalty, and then they lost 2% to Solanart. And so, if I pay 1,100, then they get around 1,000
That makes
basically.
sense. That's
And
back when
so,
Solana had fees. Good times.
yeah, that was back when everyone had fees and everyone was playing by the rules. And then when Magic Eating just got too big, then everyone started removing fees, and that's why things got kind of crazy at that
I was
point in
gonna
time.
say,
But
what do you for marketplaces? Is there anything you use besides Magic Eden for Solana NFTs?
yeah, so I believe there's one. Now I don't own anything. I don't have any equity in any of these companies, but there is Tensor. I believe it's it's TENSOR. And so that's something new that has been popping off lately. I believe there is Solana, there's Magic Eden, obviously. I think that's pretty much it. There might be some, Hyperspace. So Hyperspace is really cool too. Hyperspace.xyz. They're a fantastic team, and so you can list on there as well. But they're mostly known as a Solana NFT aggregator. But you could list on them. So I mean, they're pretty cool too.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, like nowadays, I really only use Magic Eden. So I just feel like it's
Yeah,
the most active one. Solana, man, I feel like they missed their chance at having the complete market share. 'Cause I remember, like, what, or mid 2020, they were like maybe early 2021, they were the only NFT marketplace for Solana at the time, and that's where
Oh,
Degenerate Apes launched, right? And it's crazy.
you
And
want
they
you want to
created
know what killed them?
SolPunks, so SolPunks, high fees, not adapting to change often, maybe because I remember
No,
they also didn't have
well,
bids and shit for a long time.
no. So what ended up killing Solanart? I mean, aside from the fact that they just weren't adapting quickly enough, there was a lot of issues with their exchange. Like there was a lot of bugs. Yeah, a lot of people. I mean, there was at one point in time you could post fake NFTs, or when I say fake, I mean unverified, not even on the hash list type NFTs. Yeah,
Yeah.
there was some crazy stuff going on there. But also, what ended up happening was they released those two collections, right? They released SolPunks, but they also released this collection called Bold Badgers. And
Yeah, yeah, yep. I
Bold
remember both
Badgers
Badgers.
is the absolute worst art ever. Like, no offense to the Bold Badger squad. I love you guys. I love the Badgers in like a memey way, but like that shit sucked. And then they pretty much slow rugged it. They just decided they weren't going to work on it anymore.
For
And
SolPunks,
so and they took
they didn't announce that SolPunks was owned by Solanart, right? For a very long time. I think Bold Badgers they did, like when it first came out, they did say it was like directly affiliated with Solanart. But I remember SolPunks, they did not say anything about that. And then
yeah.
after a
Don't
while,
get
they
me
got
wrong.
caught. And
I
I
think
feel like that's a
Whitey's.
major thing too. Like I feel like a lot of people in the community were like, "Oh, we can't really trust Solana. They're just going to push like their own product." And another thing too, before that became public, I knew for sure that like when the rumors started, I knew for sure they were true because I don't know if you remember this. So if you listed a SolPunk under the floor price, it almost instantly got sold in like 5 to 10 minutes. And I was like, and then those same exact SolPunks that you sold, they would never get relisted. Like I've experienced it probably like 10 or 15, maybe even 20 times. And that's when I'm like, oh, I bet Solana themselves has some sort of bot that just buys floor pieces like every like 5 to 10 minutes. And then it became more like evident that that's the exactly what's happening.
Yeah, so I don't know the exact details or like everything that went on with that. All I know is that I mean, Solana took a huge chunk of soul from either those releases, both the Bold Badgers and the Soul Punks, and they just ended up doing nothing with those collections. And a lot of people got pretty frustrated with that. And so I ultimately think the Bold Badgers and among other things was pretty much what led to their demise. And Magic Eden was just I wouldn't say managed Magic Eden was doing anything spectacular. In fact, they actually copied a lot of NFT infrastructure that Solanart or other teams had already created. It's just that they were providing a better user experience, and ultimately that kind of led to them gaining market share dominance. But it is what it is. I think now there's like Tensor, so that's kind of like the competing exchange that's trying to overcome them. I mean, hyperspace is kind of there, but it's like, eh. But yeah, Solana is pretty much dead in the water. I think they had a huge market share dominance, and they could have become a potentially 9-figure evaluated company, but even possibly $1 billion evaluated company. But they really dropped the ball. But even if they dropped the ball, they really made a killing. I don't think any of them are upset. So kudos to them. But
I mean, yeah,
yeah,
they're still pretty well off. They definitely caught the wave. It's funny. I'm looking at my old Solana transactions now, and it just baffles me how expensive these SolPunks were. Like I bought my first SolPunk for 14 Solana. I bought two more right after for 7 each. Then one for 12, and then I bought another one for 19. I guess I sold 3 of them for 19 Sol each. And now looking back, I think they're hovering around like 5 Sol. It's just crazy how much they were going for. I don't know if you remember this, but back when Degen Ape first caught like wave, Degen Ape like I don't know if it was the first day of the mint or the day after. I think the floor price was like around 5 Sol, and then right after was like 20 Sol, and then right after it got to like 60 Sol. I remember back then I ended up selling 3 SolPunks to buy 1 Degen Ape, and it's just so crazy that that wasn't a thing back then. And SolPunks
Yeah.
obviously didn't stand the test of time.
Yeah, well, the problem is that I mean, and I could see, I think anyone could see it coming, or at least most people could. I don't know. Actually, I'll just say at least I
It's a
did.
copy trade. It's obviously a copy of
Yeah.
CryptoPunks, right? So it's like we knew it wasn't gonna last forever.
Well, I mean, the problem is that okay, this isn't to rip on the SolPunk community. All right, this is just. I mean, the problem is they took IP that didn't belong to them, right? And they created a project that was basically just a blatant ripoff, right? So,
There's nothing innovative. There's nothing new. They literally copy and pasted everything and then changed the background to Solana colors. Just straight up exactly what they did. And then they stole IP. They did no real work at all. If you think about it, they put no hard work in. It's not like you bought a SolPunk and now you have all this utility and all this crazy access to stuff. You didn't get shit. You got nothing for it.
Yeah.
So I understand, and I don't understand how some people still have SolPunks. Like you don't want to piss anybody off. I'm in a position where nobody knows me that well, so I can piss everybody off. I straight up don't know why anybody would buy a SolPunk or still have a SolPunk, unless maybe they dropped maybe they're falling to like sunk cost fallacy where they bought so much of it that their only hope is that it goes back up. I don't know. I can't see why somebody would continue to support SolPunks.
Yeah. So there are a lot of people that pay a lot of money for a lot of SolPunks, and they were like, well, this could be like, I think maybe a part of them thought that, well, it's really early, and these can be the SolPunks, and even though it's like a rip off of IP, that doesn't necessarily mean
back
it won't be worth much.
When SolPunks came out, sorry to cut you off again, my bad. When SolPunks came out, they were like one of the only NFTs that were trading like on Solana. So I feel like they caught wind because of that too, because there weren't really too many options back then. And a lot of people were like, oh, CryptoPunks are trading for 100K right now. I can buy this SolPunk for like 300 USD, 400 USD, 500 USD. So I understand why it was enticing at first. I think a lot of people fall to greed as well. Like there's a lot of, it's funny in crypto, you almost kind of just have to, your thoughts have to be aligned with the narrative, and then you can probably profit, because most people are short term. Like if you're playing the short term game, obviously, but the long term game, I feel like everyone saw it coming. Like there's no utility for this. It's a copy paste project.
Yeah, the problem is that you have to kind of ignore price action, and you really have to try to assess the narrative that the NFT project has going on for it. If you really want to buy into something that's going to stand the test of time, and something like Aurory was very obvious to me as something that's going to stand the test of time. Like they just have too much money, right? And then DAA was pretty much the genesis of Solana NFTs. Some people might disagree with that, but anyone you talk to will tell you that the NFT collection that really got traction, the NFT collection that really made a difference, and according to Raj, this is a direct quote, it onboarded 250,000 users, like pretty much the first NFT users of Solana. They all came from ETH to mint that collection. Now there was definitely some stuff going on prior to that. There was SMB, there was there was Solarians, but none of these collections really got that much traction. And then when DAA dropped, like that was just this big boom in the entire Solana ecosystem. And so that right there was enough for me to be like, oh man, like DAA is obviously extremely important to the ecosystem, because no one was doing jack shit here. I mean, basically Solana was like kind of like a barren land. It had developed some DeFi infrastructure. There was like Mango Markets, there was Radium, Serum was also great.
Rest in peace.
Serum,
rest
obviously.
In peace, Serum. Yeah, rest in peace.
Yeah, rest in peace. But when DAA came, that's what really it energized the ecosystem. It brought so many people over here that most people will tell you their first experience with Solana NFTs was seeing those degen apes. And so to me, like that level of provenance and that level of history, and just being that significant at the time, to me it was just very obvious. Like, and it's also organic IP, right? It was created by someone with a really high grade skill. Monolith is a fantastic artist, and so you have this industry grade IP, and you have this huge ecosystem altering event where you just brought so many people over that it is automatically going to be one of the classics no matter what, like years from now. And if you consider that alongside the fact that Solana is going to be, it is at the frontier right now of smart contracts platforms. When you combine that thesis with the OG status of like something as prominent as DAA that affected Solana in that way, it's like these are going to appreciate in value for sure. If we think that Solana is going to continue breaking the frontier and breaking new ground, as a smart contracts platform. And so that was like my thesis right away. But when you compare that to something like SolPunks, it's like, no offense to SolPunks, it didn't get a whole lot of traction. There was some volume, but like it's also a ripoff, and like what is there to say? It's like
the art doesn't compare. Yeah. I think a lot of people don't give Degenerate Apes credit either, because like you said, so many people got onboarded to Solana. Solana pumped like crazy that the day of the mint and like the days following, because so many people wanted to buy Degenerate Apes. And then I feel like another thing that gets overlooked and not really talked about when it comes to NFTs, when you purchase an NFT, obviously you're not using USD, right? You're using the underlying asset. So in this case, Solana. So when an NFT is purchased, to me, I kind of look at that as TVL, like total value locked. It's like you are locking away the Solana and having this artwork. So that Solana is still out there, right? But it's locked away. Like you would have to sell the NFT to get Solana and then sell the Solana for cash. So to me, it's sort of like in practicality, to me, it appears to be like a TVL.
So, to kind of talk about a couple of your points. So yeah, DAA often gets I would say it gets overlooked. Not a lot of people give it a whole lot of attention. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that some people don't really understand the art. They kind of look at it and they're like, this looks kind of silly, or these apes are kind of ugly, or whatever. But the art of the apes is not taken like super seriously. There's like a strong juxtaposition of the apes being like pretty serious, but also they're being really silly at the same time. Like if you look at mine, for example, it has this serious expression, but it's eating crayons, right? So it's like it's pretty silly, but the art is fantastically done. It's really high grade industry art, and I'm pretty happy to have it. But what a lot of people overlook is just how important it was to the ecosystem, because what ended up happening was, and I'm sure you're familiar with Candy Machine, but there wasn't anything like Candy Machine at the time that Degenerate Apes minted. And so the DAA team tried to create something pretty similar to what we know as Candy Machine today, but it ended up flopping. But because there was a lot
of drama with the Degen Trash Panda mint, right?
Well, that's a little bit later, but what ended up happening with DAA is that the first initial mint that they tried to do, it just flopped miserably, because
and that's how we got exiled apes, right? That's where exiled apes came from?
Yeah,
the flop.
Yes, the exiled apes ended up coming from that. Basically the exiled apes just didn't have. For those who don't know, the first initial mint for DAA, it flopped, and then only 700 NFTs got out. And among those 700 NFTs, there was a lot of blank NFTs with like missing metadata, or they even had missing names. And the worst part about it is that the team didn't have update authority over those NFTs, so they couldn't actually change those NFTs or basically figure out what to do with them. At first, they thought that they could include them, but then quickly realized they flip-flopped on the decision, because they didn't realize that there was pretty much no saving these NFTs. Now, let me clarify that the infrastructure wasn't available at the time, so we didn't have like something like the Entangler in order to save those NFTs. Pretty much everyone was kind of in cohesion and in agreement that those NFTs were pretty much long gone. There was nothing that could be done, but it did cause a lot of drama. But ultimately, this all happened because DAA was trying to break new ground with what they thought to be an ironclad solution for a big, massive 10,000 NFT drop. But what ended up happening instead was it failed, and then the next day they had Solana Labs ended up deploying Jordan Prince and Bartosz Lempinski. So that's B&J. Those guys are pretty well known in the Solana space. They're basically the godfathers of Solana NFTs. And they helped create the Metaplex token contracts, but they also helped create Candy Machine. And it was through DAA that the first version of Candy Machine was ever created. And as a result of Candy Machine being created, it ended up, and as a result of the DAA mint, the combination of the two ended up sparking this massive NFT bull run on Solana, and it just went crazy. Like all these NFT mints started happening using Candy Machine. So they built another Candy Machine based on the DAA Candy Machine, and it was just, the race was off. The horses were running. Everyone was going crazy. Billions of dollars traded hands in like the ultimate frenzy to pretty much capture value from the Solana NFT, from basically the generation one of Solana NFTs, and it was a wild time. But basically, DAA just like, to me, DAA is really just the great Bambino of Solana NFTs, simply because it caused a lot of innovation on the Solana blockchain. It really changed the future of the Solana NFT blockchain, in my opinion. I think a lot of people would agree with that. But also, it caused the creation of Candy Machine. It was just this organic artwork that brought over 250,000 users to the chain, like verifiably. So, when you look at all these other collections, that had come before it at the time, none of them come anywhere close to the level of provenance, in my opinion. This is no offense.
You think, and there's a few times in the past where DAA tried doing something and it kind of flopped, where and a lot of those things probably a lot of people don't remember. Do you remember when they created their own beer, like their own drink?
So yeah, I mean, there is an execution issue for sure with DAA, I would say. But at the same time, I don't really like DAA simply because there have been issues with the team executing. I like DAA because it has that historical significance. It has that provenance. It really made a huge impact on the ecosystem as a whole. And whether or not anyone wants to agree with it, pretty much SMB, DeGods, any Solana NFT that is successful has basically walked on the foundations that DAA set. Even though something like SMB came before DAA, DAA brought in 250,000 users, brought in tons of capital into the ecosystem, where people were just going balls to the wall, degenerate with these NFT purchases. All of that was truly made possible by that collection, I feel, because before that, Solana just had no traction in terms of NFTs, and its DeFi was kind of laughable at the time. So that's kind of how I see it. So regardless of what happens with the team and whatever anyone decides to do moving forward, it's just they're always going to be known for that, I would say, or at least I'm always going to tell that story, and I'm always going to like them for that. The thing too is, a lot of people who have the top ranking apes, they just won't let them go. I mean, I'm probably going to end up trying to let go of my Acid Jordan at some point, but because I want to get a rare ape. But a lot of people hold those with such diamond hands. I offered 2,000 Sol for one recently for a space element, and they would not let it go. So I think for the top end apes, there's a lot of there's a lot of people who just know that this collection is really important, and they're just never going to let it go.
What's the most you've ever spent on an ape in terms of USD? Because 2,000 Sol right now is about 50K USD.
Yeah, I dropped about 100,000 Sol. Or no, not 100,000 Sol. Sorry, I dropped 100,000. Yeah, no. I dropped $100,000 on the Acid Jordan that I have right now, which was at the time I spent about 1,500 Sol at around $65 or so per Sol. So that was the most I had spent on one. I paid for that one because something was off with its metadata. Its metadata was completely wrong, and it turned out to be a pretty cool investment because what ended up happening was Monolith had customized 60 of the apes in the collection, but he forgot to change the metadata for that specific one. So it's the only ape in the collection, the only mythic ape in the collection that has a metadata misprint like that. So I thought that was pretty cool, and so I have that one. But it's I mean, what can I say? A lot of people do like that one, but I also kind of want to get the Space Helmet Ape or another MSR, which is short for mythic super rare. Basically, there's 10 apes that have a mythic trait and a super rare trait that aren't space helmet apes, and so those are really interesting to me. I kind of want to get one of those, so we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, that's why I really like the collection. But the problem with the collection, I think, more than anything else, is that a lot of people don't really like the floor trait apes. So there's a lot of association with digital identity. And the thing is that, I mean, some of those apes just, they have these like
I wish
hot dogs in their mouth.
Monolith did not create these, like the pink dress and like the unbranded like sports jersey. It's like, dude, what the fuck are these? Those are the only ones that I really have like a negative like connotation with. But it's like, I'm like, why did it doesn't make sense. It's unbranded tank top with the DAA logo in the middle of it. Like, I'm looking at one right now, it makes no sense. But I guess everything can't be perfect.
So yeah, that I think that's one of the core issues with DAA for sure, is that when Monolith created this collection, I mean, again, like the ethos of these apes is that they're these serious apes, but they're really silly at the same time. So the dresses aren't really meant to be interpreted as being like girly or like unfashionable or whatever. It's supposed to be just silly. But a lot of people don't see it that way when they make these associations with their own digital identity. For me personally, it's like, I wouldn't even necessarily mind it as much if I was like, PFPing a dress ape. But I have this one, so of course I'm going to PFP this one. But yeah, a lot of people just, they don't like it, and they don't like those eggplants, they don't like those burgers, they don't like the hot dogs. I'll confess, there's a space helmet ape that has a burger in its mouth. It's the black space ape, and it has the burger. But I just, when I saw that burger, I was like, I hate the burger in its mouth.
I don't have an issue. I don't have an issue with those that much. I know the community really likes the pizza one, which is dope. There was one that looks like a pancake, I think, but it's really a grilled cheese. That one was a little iffy. I feel like those ones aren't too bad, because like at the end of the day, if like the ape is cool and it has like a little like weird cheeseburger, I don't think that's that big of a deal. But that like black and white maid outfit, it's like, dude, who wants to PFP an ape in a maid outfit? And I understand like the juxtaposition to it, but like judging it by instantly judging it, it's a bad look.
Yeah, it's supposed to be silly, but a lot of people don't make that association. They just don't, like, they personally wouldn't wear a dress. And so as a result of that, I would say the FP kind of suffers for that. I think there's just there's probably, maybe perhaps there's too many units as well. I don't know if too many is an issue, but I don't know. It's kind of tough. But I think with the onset of V2 and being able to burn all those apes that don't have great traits or whatever, people will be able to participate in the V2 ecosystem, and so that will be I think that will help quite a bit. But aside from that, the problem is like, I really value the V1 collection a lot for like what it did for the ecosystem, and so them burning the V1s is kind of weird in a way, because I guess I equate it kind of like to having old cars and new cars, right? You have the old like Aston Martins that like are worth a lot of money, but then you can also have like these new Bugattis, right? And so that's probably the best way to put it, and hopefully that's what ends up happening, because I wouldn't want people to burn their V1s and then V2s just not being valued as much because they lack that same like historical like significance, that same provenance. But Monolith, his art is just so good that I don't think people are going to care too much. And I think people will probably still associate V2s with the V1s, because, I mean, technically you can't get one.
I wonder if it would be a good idea for like the Degen DAO to buy. I know this. Somebody definitely has thought about this before, like buying all those undesirable characteristics and maybe burning them or something. I don't know.
Oh man! Oh, trust me. So I was one of the first council members elected, and one of the first things that I proposed was like, let's buy and burn these stupid dress apes. And immediately their legal team was like, we shouldn't do that.
Why not, though?
We shouldn't do that because that's like price fixing. That's like, there's some weird like argument, and I was like, okay, like whatever. But it turned out that was really desperately needed. We talked about this in 2021 in August, Like this was like almost 2 years ago. I was like, we need to get rid of those, and they were just like, well, And the problem is, no one's really incentivized to collect all the dress apes, right? Like,
No.
no one's really. So that's just a perpetual problem that exists with that collection until the V2s come out, where we burn the V2s or we burn the V1s, excuse me, to get the V2s. And so
That might be the only hope,
kinda,
if you could burn a pink dress or a maid's outfit or the jersey and get something that maybe slightly resembles it, but it's not it at all. Like that would be probably the only way to fix that, I would say.
Yeah. So what they're gonna change the traits entirely for those. They're gonna like. I mean, so I don't know if you've seen some of the V2 traits, but they're going to just completely overhaul the dress apes and the maids. They're not gonna look anything like they looked for their V1s. There's gonna be totally different traits for each thing. So I don't know exactly what they're gonna replace them with, but so far all the V2 traits have looked pretty cool. I'm not that big of a fan of the mustache though, to be honest, but
I haven't
a lot of
seen
people
them actually. Should I just Google like Degenerate Ape V2 and should it pop up?
I don't even know if it'd be available, to be honest. You would have to. I think the best way to find out more about it is to just just to look up the Degenerate Ape Twitter, or look up Monolith's Twitter, and you'll find stuff there. By the way, I just want to harp back onto like the topic of SMB, because I think I just want to quickly iterate that I love everyone. I love people. I love. I don't dislike anyone in the SMB community in any way, shape, or form. I actually, for the most part, I think Nom's like a great character. I think Jemmy is like genuinely enthusiastic about those monkeys.
Yeah.
So just to clarify that, there is a bit of it's a complex view from me, where it's like there was clearly a lot of weird things going on with this collection, but at the same time, I still really like the community, and so I just don't. It gets complicated and it gets kind of messy, but like ultimately, I don't want to FUD their project. It's just it kind of is what it is, and I hope one day we're able to just talk about it, like just to address the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
I like to just to be able to be like this, like what are we gonna do about this, right? But hopefully they kind of hopefully they're able to reclaim their collection. Hopefully they control the update authority, and maybe they'll make the necessary fixes that they want to make, and make it so that they can reach that escape velocity and become a big brand in the future. So it's like I want to hope that they succeed, because a lot of money has been put in that project, like more than what I'm comfortable seeing go to zero. So I don't want to see them fail. I just want those issues to be resolved. So just to clarify that, it's all definitely love, no hate.
Yeah, I wish the best for all the collections too. I definitely don't want any negative thing that happens to Solana is going to affect Solana as a whole. I'm looking at Monolith's Twitter, and he tweeted a picture of an ape in like knight armor. So is this like maybe one of the V2 things? V2 NFTs you're referring to?
Armor. That knight armor is so fucking sick. Oh my god!
I saw this like 2 weeks ago, and I just thought Monolith was just like fucking around with like just I don't know, throwing shit in like Photoshop and posting. I didn't know this was actually going to be something. So the way to get the V2s are so you would need an ape now, and then you'd have to burn it, and then you're able to. Would you mint like a V2, or does it matter which degenerate ape you have now?
So just to clarify something, pretty much anything Monolith posts, like he created himself with, he rendered that himself with with the program. He renders them, it's genuine, authentic, his own 3D art. It's not photoshopped. So I mean that if you look closely, there's a ton of attention to detail with that knight armor. It's so good.
Even though it shines, there's a little shine on the shoulder. It's crazy. Looks amazing.
Yeah, it's fucking incredible, and it's like wait, how is this not like one of the top projects on Solana? I don't know. It's very weird.
It is one of the top projects on Solana. It is yeah, one of the top. Maybe not the top, but it definitely is.
Well, I don't know. I think
is it number 3 in terms of floor price? Is it DGods, SMB, and then DAA?
Well, so people consider DGods to be so Ethereum? DGods is now an Ethereum project. Yeah, so I guess it would be DAA, There's also the SMB is currently on top, of course. If you ignore the previous collections,
Oh, I'm looking at Magic Eden now. There's tons of floor prices that are higher. It looks like Teo
well, I
Robotics.
mean, some of those aren't legit. Like, basically, they have no volume, but like they listed the floor prices like pretty high. The best place to check like rankings in terms of floor price, in terms of market capitalization, is probably hyperspace. And so right
Hyperspace,
now, the only collections that are realistically above DAA are SMB and Claynosaurz, and then there's also OK Bears at the moment. So
what are
OK
these
Bears.
degenerate drop bears? What are these?
Oh, so what ended up happening with okay, when DAA was breaking new ground with their collection, there was a lot of problems with the collection. So obviously there was the exiles, that's an issue. But the other thing that ended up happening was there were these twins that were created as a result of an incorrect generation of the image files and metadata. And so a lot of twins and triplets and even some quadruplets of apes exist, meaning that not all the apes are 100% unique. And so as a result of this, in order to kind of like make things right for people that minted those twins, they ended up creating an event where you could generate these eggs if you participated in the event, and twins were able to participate and get special eggs. And then it was just this, it's kind of this wild thing. But anyways, so the drop bears is supposed to be, an extension of the Degeniverse, and there's 2,500 of them basically.
That's cool. Yeah, I saw these and I want to say I got out of the game like last Aprilish, and I kind of just focused on like IRL stuff. So I haven't really been too active in crypto, but when I probably came back like a month ago, like really like diving in again, and I saw these degenerate drop bears, and I'm like, bro, the artwork is kind of sick on these too. And then I didn't know that that's what those eggs were for. I knew about the eggs at the time, and I had no idea that this is what came about the eggs. Like I still have like in my wallet, I still have like degen trash panda merch token. I still have like a few DTP tokens and apparently like or trash trap tokens. Like I still have a lot of these tokens I never used because I just wasn't around.
Yeah, unless it's the trash panda mint token, then it's probably worthless. I hate to say it. It's just what can I say?
Might be
yeah.
I feel like the trash trap tokens are what you use to mint or are these for the mini game? These might be for the mini game. I could be wrong.
Honestly, I don't remember. All I know is that if it's not a trash panda mint token, there's a pretty high, like the trash trap token, for example, is like worthless. But you may as well hold on to it anyway, because there's a chance that it ends up having a use sometime in the future. But as of right now, it has no use case, pretty much. So
I mean, I'm gonna hold. That's definitely not worth burning it. It's so funny that I guess there's a description on Phantom Wallet, and it ends with rules explained at twitter.com/Saint Eclectic. And that dude's not around anymore, is he? Or is he around? But is he like? I don't know if you want to. You don't have to talk about that if you don't want to. Like I know that might be a touchy subject. We don't have to talk. We don't have to waste our time on that. But yeah, that's we don't have to keep that part. I'm definitely cutting out. Like I definitely don't want people knowing what I do. But yeah, we can get back to whatever we were talking about right before we started talking about it.
Honestly, I don't even remember.
We were talking about the trash trap tokens because in the description it says it points to his Twitter thread.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Whatever. I mean, but he's long gone, and nobody trash trap token. I don't even think trash trap ever happened. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it never happened. And just the problem is DTP is trying to find product market fit, but it just that was not something they were good at. Trying to create this game, and so they've kind of moved on to try to do different things. So it's currently worthless and doesn't really do anything.
I like DAA a lot, obviously because of the art. They're one of the main reasons why Solana fucking blew up in the first place. But there are two things that DAA did that I kind of have an issue with. One is like they dropped their own, and I'm not trying to FUD DAA, right? Like I don't own any at the moment, but I definitely will own some. I actually just sold mine a little.
Didn't you? I thought you had a DAA profile picture though at one point.
I did like a week ago, and it's funny. So
Oh, you sell it or like what happened?
yeah, I just so the floor price for DAA was like 40 Sol, right? And I saw I saw an ape that I wanted at, and I think it was at like 42, 43 Sol. So I'm like, let me list. I listed mine for pretty high compared to floor price. I listed mine for 57 Solana. So I'm like, if somebody buys if somebody buys mine, I'm gonna go grab the other one right away. And then somebody ended up sweeping the floor, and then I'm like, oh, I'm like, I can't even buy back in. So I'm just waiting for like a little correction, and then I'll just buy another ape, because there was a really dope one hovering around the 40 Sol price range, and I was like, I'd rather have that than mine. But one of the, obviously I don't have any at the moment, but like literally a week ago I had one.
Yeah. So I mean, well, what was I gonna say? You should get one. DAA is cool, but also
Don't worry, I'm gonna get one for sure. I plan to get many. I just when I left when I left crypto, I liquidated pretty much everything. I still had a lot of stuff though. Have you ever heard of Solana slugs, Soul slugs? I don't know if you've. It's such a small. It's a extremely small NFT collection, and I bought a bunch of them at 0.1 Sol, and now they're trading at like I think it's like 3 Sol. It's crazy. Or that was one of the few that I kept because I thought they were so worthless at the time. I'm like, I don't even want to like list these. But I'm back in the game. I'm gonna buy more Aurorys, buy more apes. Definitely buy a lot more Solana tokens. But yeah, at the moment I don't have an ape. But what I was saying earlier about the beer thing, or was that the what? I think that's what. I suppose. Sorry if I sound crazy. The two issues. All right, one was when they dropped their beer, because all they did was what they just essentially white labeled their beer, right? And white labeling is when you like wholesale something and then you slap your own branding on it. That's all they did for that, where that kind of pissed me off a little bit, which I wish they were a little more public, because at the time that happened, I was really good friends with a person that owns a beverage center and does beer distribution, and he literally created he collabed with a local brewery that's local to us, and he created a beer. I'm not going to say the full name just because it leads it back to me, but it had crypto in the name, and it was like a unique beer, brand new beer. So like if DAA like made it slightly public or even talked about it in the Discord that they were planning this, I would have been like, bro, I have the perfect connections for this. And then when they just white labeled the beer, and it's like that same beer is sold like for other people with different labels on it, it just took away. I'm like, dude, you could have had something really special here. And like, you never know, bro. Like they could have, like, look at Prime by Logan Paul, right? That's about to be $1 billion company, and all it is Logan Paul's energy or beverage or whatever, like Gatorade competitor. DAA could have made a legitimate beer, and it could have been in stores, bro. People love IPAs. Like, why wouldn't this IPA NFT thing have a chance to blow up? That was one thing that I really disliked how they executed. The other thing was their merch, which I don't really mind it that much. I just thought it could have been a little more creative, probably a little more price friendly. Like I think it was like $70 for a hoodie, which isn't actually crazy nowadays, but I feel like they could have priced things better, or just had the one shirt they had, that black shirt with the logo on the front and like a large picture on the back, I actually enjoyed. But yeah, those are really the only two things. The beer thing really ticked me off because I had a personal friend that could have really made that into something crazy. And I feel like they just didn't try on that. They just white labeled it, which I just thought it was so lazy. It's like, why do something if you're going to be lazy about it?
Yeah, so I mean, my thoughts on the beer. Oh man, and like in the beer hats too. The beer hats really pissed me off because it was like the exact same thing. So not to FUD DAA, but like when they sent out the beer hats were just repurchased beer hats, but they stuck a DAA sticker on it. And
Yeah,
so it's
exactly.
like
That's what I'm
this
saying.
is like
It's white label trash. It's like drop shipping
yeah,
trash. What are you doing?
this
You are the
yeah.
NFT on Solana. What are you being lazy for?
Yeah, like it was dog shit. There's no denying it. I'll say it up front. And I think they were just trying to be different and try to do something cool. And then, yeah, I think white labeling the beer as well was kind of like, like they could have done something a bit more organic and done something, a bit more interesting, and they just didn't really do it. But I mean, they had an opportunity to release beer like that, and so I don't know. I don't necessarily see it as a bad thing, but I guess I don't think they were necessarily trying to create a business out of it either. They were just trying to release like a cool product that would be fun. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it is what it is. As far as the merch, yeah, I'm not really. I wasn't too big of a fan of the merch either, simply because I ended up ordering 2 pairs of everything because I was really bullish on the project at the time. I'm still really bullish on like the provenance and the historical significance and Monolith's art. But
Yeah.
as far as like goes, I think I'm not quite as bullish on them as collector's collector's items, simply because there's like who knows how many of those exist now. But also I ended up ordering 2 pairs of each, like I said, and I only received one of each item that I ordered, even though I ordered double.
Really?
And I don't know. I think I got scammed for like half the what I paid, but it was not a great experience for a lot of people. I would say I don't think I was intentionally scammed. I think it was just a bad.
It's just bad logistics, essentially. I need 1 second. I literally just have to open my door for my cat to get out. He's like bugging me at the door. What? My bad about that. It's funny. I just got. Do you have any pets?
I used to, but right now you would never believe what I'm doing right now, even though I don't have, I'm not allowed to have pets, so.
Not allowed to? Is that like a living thing? Like where you live at?
So I've publicly told people that I drive a truck at the moment. I literally drive a semi-truck.
Oh yeah, I saw your tweets about that. Why'd you not just do like work from home accounting or something?
So what ended up happening was I like I said, I quit that accounting gig that I had. I was working for one of the big 4 banks of Mexico. It's kind of like random, but that's what I ended up doing. And then I ended up quitting, and I opened up my own fund to basically trade these volatile assets, to trade cryptocurrency, and I did it for 3 or 4 years straight, and obviously performed pretty well because I was able to make $400,000 purchases on NFTs that are worthless.
How open are you to talking about your portfolio? I guess I don't know. Is your like Solana name public?
What do you mean Solana name?
Like your like Bardstock.sol, for example. I don't know if that's actually what it's called.
So that's just like one of my wallets. There's 3 wallets that I have that are public, and then I have multiple wallets that are not public. So those wallets have been intentionally masked using exchanges. So what ends up happening is an exchange will keep all their Solana or like all their USDC in a singular wallet, and that allows me to kind of maneuver around to different wallets to trade. I've done this multiple times to trade multiple NFT collections and to make trades, simply because some people do try to follow my wallets. Some people try to front run my wallet. Sometimes it's kind of annoying. But also what some people try to do is if they see me selling NFTs from my personal account or my personal wallet, then they'll just get really upset really quickly, and like they'll start talking about it in Discords, and then I have people DMing me saying, "Hey, you can't do this, or you shouldn't do that, dude. Like, why are you selling?" It's like, dude, it's mine to sell. Like imagine like, okay, for example, like I bought eggs at like for pretty cheap, and then I was selling them and then people would give me shit for it. It's like, come on, dude. Like, I'm trying to trade as well, but I don't know. It is what it is. People just don't like seeing whales or big accounts selling. They just get mad, even though it's all legit. Even though it's legit, it is what it is.
Yeah, there's no paid shows behind the scenes or anything like that. What is the most you have in one of those public wallets right now?
So like in one of the wallets, I have I have 50 Aurorians. I have like somewhere around $100,000 in like using a DEX with like Mango Markets. some of them have like nothing in them really. Some of them, one of them has like a mythic Degenerate Ape and like a couple rare Degenerate Apes, and who knows how much that was. I think the Acid Jordan probably sells for like $40,000 at the moment. And then in some of my private wallets, I will, and like I have a ledger that holds just that Degenerate, for example, and then I have another ledger that also holds quite a bit of Sol. But overall, the portfolio is 7 figures. So
That's cool. Yeah, so definitely a good position to be in, especially right now where it's like your portfolio can easily 10x just if you don't do anything over the next few years. Like, it's definitely a good position to be in. I'm on the fence.
The
I'm
plan
on the.
is the plan is to retire in a few years.
Oh, what's your retirement number? How much money do you need to have to fund retirement?
I think if I hit 8 figures, I'm done. Pretty
Full
much.
agreement.
Well, huh?
I said I'm in full agreement. 10 mil is the number. You don't need anything much after that. Like, I don't know what your plan is, but my plan would probably be like maybe like 3 to 5 mil in like an index fund, and that's like 7%. Take a safe withdrawal rate of 4%, live off that, and then the other 5 mil, I don't know, blow it on. Maybe not blow it, but like, I don't know, have it around other investments. Probably go blow like $1 million on something. 10 mil is my number. That's always been my number. I told all my friends, I'm like, once I hit 8 figures, everybody's getting Rolexes, every single one.
Well, so for example, what you could do. I mean, if let's say, for example, I get 10 million and interest rates stay the same. I mean, you can pretty much, if you buy T-bills, if you buy high interest rate, treasury bonds, like, I mean, you're making some pretty serious cash, So right now interest rates are pretty high, and cash, cash is king for the most part in a lot of many parts of the world. So getting 5%, 6% on some of these bills, I mean, what is that? $600,000 per year. So there's a lot of things you could do right now. With that
That's
money.
if you dump the whole 10 mil in there. I guess if you dump like 5, I said, yeah, that's if you dump the whole 10 mil in like treasuries, you get around 600K, but you don't need 600K to live off. Like, I wouldn't, like, half of that into that, maybe live off 300K. I'm not too big of a fan on treasuries either. I don't know why. I'm a huge fan of these index funds.
I mean, look. So you could put it in an index fund, and it'll usually be diversified in bonds and stocks and whatever else is in between. I don't even know, but I mean, if you get a guaranteed yield of 6% on 10 mil, I think you should take it. I mean, that's a fucking deal. Like, it's pretty much risk free money at 6% for 600,000, and that's way more money would ever need. Whereas if you put it into an index fund, I'd argue that there's more, for sure, there's more risk involved. And it's like, are you really trying to appreciate your portfolio beyond 6% per year? I don't even know if you even are. So
I get what you're saying. I'm just, I don't know, man. Like, what index, even index funds in 2020 jumped like 20%, something outrageous, just because like the whole market. I just think index funds are more correlated with the overall market. So like treasuries, yeah, you're locked in at 6%, which is fantastic. It's actually more than the 4% safe withdrawal rate that I would personally use. So it actually, even under my own theory, that it would make more sense doing that. But I don't know, something about treasury bills aren't liquid though, right? Like, there's a process with selling them too.
So it really depends on the maturity date, obviously. But you can get maturity dates that are only like 3 months. So, I mean,
That's
you don't
true.
have to, stick the whole enchilada in there. I mean, it's all relative, and it's all whatever you decide you want to do. But for me personally, like, sticking 10 mil in treasury bills and getting 6% yield guaranteed right now is fucking fantastic. And most people will tell you the same thing. It's like, okay, you can throw your money in the market, and like, you can throw it into an index fund or a mutual fund or whatever, and it could go up 20%. But I mean, if it can go up 20%, then it can also go down 20%, right? So it's like, I mean, pick your poison, but really context matters. And it's also relative, who knows what market conditions are at that point? Who knows what the macro is at that point? I would say right now, if I had a choice and I had 10 figures, I mean, excuse me, 8 figures, I would. I mean, crypto is such a great play right now. To be honest,
Oh,
like based
of
on market
course.
structure, based on the market cycle. So, but I think most of the time, if I have 8 figures, I would retire and just take the 600K per year and just fuck off and do my own thing. To be honest, so.
No, let's talk about the markets. I don't want to talk. I didn't originally want to talk too much about like price predictions, but where do you see Bitcoin hitting next cycle, like peaking? If you want to make a guess,
Probably 100K. I think 100K sounds about right.
you think
Just
that's it?
well, I think it's a big psychological level for a lot of people. I don't know if that's going to be the exact top, but I will say though that I bet you 100,420 is the top. Actually, I'll go on record to say that because historically, a lot of people like to sell meme numbers. I don't know if you've noticed that, but
Yeah,
like for
definitely.
you know, Ethereum ended up topping out at $1,420, so 420, right? Back in 2017, when Bitcoin reached 4,000 or 40,000, no, excuse me, when Bitcoin reached $42,069, there was a huge sell-off there as
Yep.
well. I don't know if did Bitcoin ever get to $69,000. I don't know if it did.
I
It
think it
came
was
pretty
67-ish, like 67-ish
yeah.
was the
It came
ATH.
so close, and I think people front ran 69,000.
I
It
think
is really funny.
there was a ton of limit orders at 69 at 16 69K 69.420. There's tons of limit orders
Yeah,
at that price. I don't know, I can't talk right now. But I do remember it was like just a little shy.
yeah, no. So people love selling those meme numbers. So it wouldn't surprise me if if we do manage to get beyond 69,000, and we do manage to get beyond, like, if we do crack 100, literally 100,420 would be like the number to beat. I would say, and then it's just those meme numbers, man. Like I would say that's what would probably end up happening. Yeah, now that I think about it, certainly Bitcoin would be an option. It would be something open to consideration. But what the problem is if you have 8 figures already, it's like, how much of a degenerate do you have to be to want more? Like there has to be a point where you need to stop. And for me, it's like
I think you're in
one.
I think you go from a wealth appreciation phase to more of a wealth preservation phase. So when you're at 10 figures, you really should just be kind of about preserving your wealth. I mean, what do gamblers use, like 2% on all their trades? Maybe you could follow a similar model. So when you're at
Yeah,
10 figures, maybe 9 figures is in super safe investments, and then 1 mil it can go into like crypto. Even though I view Bitcoin and ETH as like safe investments, but like traditionally I understand why some people wouldn't. But yeah, maybe that's
I
what
would.
you would have to do. I feel like even if you had 10 figures, bro, you always will want to be part of this. Like you always want some sort of exposure. No matter how much like the dollar
Yeah.
value is, you'll
Well,
always want exposure in it.
Well, so first of all, like 10 figures, I mean that's $1 billion. So we're talking about 8 figures, right? So even if you have 8 figures, yeah, there is still a chance that people are going to want to participate. I mean, I'm really good at trading these markets. Um, I've been pretty good at them, because I did it for so long. But I think at some point, I just have to say, you know what? If I can get 600K a year, you know what I would do? I would take the profits from 600K and then I would use that as play money. That's what I would do. So I'd preserve the 10 mil, and then I would say, okay, I've only spent $50,000 living this year, or 60,000, whatever. Groceries, rent, internet. Buying
No,
games that I want to play,
you don't
going to the
think you'll
gym.
upgrade the lifestyle a little bit?
No. So I've always been a pretty minimalist in terms of how I'm living. I'm literally living in a semi truck right now. Just to put this into perspective, okay? So I'm literally living in a semi truck. So,
That's
so,
actually
so like,
super dope. Are you in the truck right
it,
now?
huh?
Are you in the truck right now?
I'm literally in the truck right now.
Yeah, that's great. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
But the thing is,
I'm literally. I'm in.
60K a year is easy to live off of. But like, what if you? I like traveling a lot, and traveling gets so fucking expensive, especially like flights, stay, whatever. I feel like when I'm like it's all said and done, and I'm done working, or like quote unquote working, I don't think 60K would be enough. I feel like I would need like 2K a week at least to be able to spend on day-to-day stuff. Or 60K is about 1K a week. I don't know, bro. I feel it'd be real hard if you had 8 figures and you were still in your semi truck. I'd be kind of disappointed. I'm like, bro, come on. What are you doing living in the truck?
I already have 7 figures. I'm in a semi truck, so it's like whatever, dude. Like it's really not that far off. So like I just to be like brutal honesty. It's like I just don't need that much to live. Like I've been really minimalist all my life. Like if you looked at my apartment when I still had one in Austin, like even though my fund was doing extremely well, it was just like, I had a rice cooker, I had like, really basic stuff, but like I wasn't like ordering food like every day. I wasn't like living luxuriously. I didn't buy a Tesla. I didn't buy a Lambo with like the boys or whatever. It's like it's such a fucking waste of money. Like like when I drove a Prius, but that was like the most that I did. Like probably my biggest purchase was like a Prius. Aside from like, I literally spent more money on NFTs than anything else in my entire life.
I'm in a similar I'm in a similar boat too, where I try to keep costs like super low. Like I could, in theory, go buy a nicer car. I also drive a Toyota too. I try not eating out much. I try not using DoorDash or Uber Eats or anything. And I literally set, before that inflation was so fucking crazy. I mean, even a while it was so crazy. A few months ago, I was like, I'm gonna spend my grocery budget to like $10 a day on food. I'm like, I'm only trying to spend $300 a month, but as inflation's so high, it's so hard to hit that nowadays. But yeah, I completely understand your perspective, but I feel like that should only be when you're in grind. If I had 7 figures right now, bro, I don't think I could do it. But then again, I don't know.
No,
How
here's the thing. So, like, okay, what's like an item you would buy if you had 7 figures or 8 figures right now? Like, what's something like you would have to buy and you would want to have for yourself if you had that money?
I'll go dream car. I want a 765 LT. If you're not familiar with cars, that's it's a McClaren.
That.
What's
okay,
that?
McClaren.
Yeah,
That's
McClaren.
quite a. So McClaren is quite a bit of money, right? Like how much is that? Like that's easily like 6 figures.
A 765 LT probably is like 600K. I'd say maybe 500.
Okay, so do you have any idea how much insurance you have to pay on that?
Yeah, it's a fuck ton. I understand that.
So you're paying so much in insurance premiums a month. You're paying a ton for gas. Like it's so and little. Okay, what if it gets scratched? What like you become a target? Someone sees that McClaren, and then you're gonna have to live in a gated community if you don't want to get scammed out of your vehicle. Like you know what I mean? It just makes you a moving target.
Yeah, I mean I don't know where. I mean, how do I put it? I don't really mind that all that much. I mean, I guess I should, but I don't know. Like where I grew up is terrible.
Can you imagine in LA with a McClaren and then someone pulls out a gun and says, "Get out of your car"? It's like
Yeah, it's not ideal. It's definitely not ideal.
But also, like, who are you trying to impress, right? Like, it's like, okay, this is a big social flex, but it's like, okay, you get out of the car and you show it off for a little bit, but it's like, I'm not trying to impress anyone.
Yeah, I'm not. The thing is that's McLaren 765 LT is arguably the best performing car ever. Like Bugatti tops out at a much higher like miles per hour, but like driving wise, like the 765 LT is rated to be like the best ride ever. Best drive, like objectively the best drive. Like they make like Paganis that are like 2 mil a piece that are quote unquote smooth too, but I actually like the car and I feel like. That is obviously I would buy it to drive it around and show people and do all this shit, but I don't think fundamentally that's why I would buy it because I don't operate like that because there's a reason I have a Toyota now. Like bro, this might sound funny. After watching Iron Man, I'm like, yo, I need an Audi. Iron Man's my favorite superhero. All he drives is Audis. I'm like, I should go buy an Audi. Like I could buy one now, but it's just it doesn't make sense to do so. Like I would be prioritizing the wrong things. But I feel like once I do have money and making money, isn't much of a priority, or saving money, I guess, that's when I'm like, I'll go ball out and go buy a supercar or something. Something like a Lambo, though, I'm not really the biggest fans of those. And those are actually like half the price of those 765 LT. So I guess in
The
theory,
yeah. The problem too that I have is like, I mean, if you buy that car, I don't now. Not all of those cars are going to appreciate in value. Like the moment you buy a car and you drive off the lot, it
it's
literally
done. Yeah.
depreciates in value. So it's like for me, like I'm so investment focused, I'm so investment driven that when I even think about driving a car off a lot, like new, it kind of I kind of wince a little bit because it's like, damn, I just lost like $20,000 driving off this lot with this car. You know, it's I don't know.
Yeah, but in
For
terms of, I think valuations like that only matter if you're actively
but
trying to sell the car. Like, I feel like if you buy a car, like, bro, for example, I bought my Toyota before the used car market went up like crazy. I bought it for, it's a 2019. I bought it for like 16K, which is an absolute steal for that car back then, right? And then like a few months later, like it ended up being worth like 28K. But it's like that number, that valuation did not matter. I would get emails from like KBB. I got an email from the dealership saying they want to buy it back. But that number didn't matter to me because I wasn't in the market to sell the car, right? So like if you do buy a car like this, I guess if like 5 years from now you're like, I want to sell this, then that shouldn't matter. But I don't think that really matters all that much.
I think long-term views should always be prevalent because you might want to buy that car now, but then who knows what other investment you might be more interested in later on. And it's like, is this really worth buying? To me, it's sort of like buying a tattoo. It's like getting a tattoo. It's like, okay, oh man, this tattoo is so cool. You know, you want to get it, and then you get it, and then like 10 years later, you're like, fuck, why did I
But
get this fucking
think
tattoo?
about it this
You know,
way though.
it's like,
I get you. I get what you're saying, but think about it this way, right? So, like you
no,
said, you
no,
buy the.
there's no changing my mind on this, but I respect that you like cars.
Hear me out. Hear me
You
out, though. Hear me out. I have
clearly like.
one counter, just
Uh,
one counter. So, let's say you bought those T bills, right? And you were making the 600K or whatever, and you said you can live off 60K, right? If you can live off
uh,
60K and you're making an extra 500K on top, right? What is the real point in, I guess, it might sound stupid, right? It might sound really dumb. It's like, what is the point of utilizing the 500K to be like super efficient? Like, don't you think there should be some wiggle room where you're just like, all right, like I have an extra 500K, I'll spend like, I don't know, 300 of it on like safe investments,
okay.
but the other
I know.
200K might be worth
Yeah.
like fucking off with, because the thing is you're already good, right? Like you're already making this so much money that you don't need, like that's the position I want to be in when I say like I want this car. It's like I want to be in a position where it won't affect, if I buy the car and I crash it and it goes to nothing, it doesn't affect me at all because I'm already like so well off in all these other aspects. That's the only way it would
I
make
think
sense. It wouldn't
so.
make
I
sense if I'm
understand
still
what.
like
Yeah.
on the up.
I, I understand what you're saying, which is that it's like, okay, you can live off 60K a year, no big deal, fine. But like, don't you feel like you should be living it up a little bit more than that? Like, I mean, you have all this extra money, and to that, I would say, I mean, yeah, I mean, I would go on vacations. Like, I would explore the world. I would do world traveling for sure. I like go to the rest of Western Europe that I haven't been to yet. Certainly, I would want to go to check out Japan, check out South Korea, check out China, check out some parts of Malaysia, Singapore. Like, there's a lot. I want to a little bit of Australia, not all of it, because I don't want to get fucking killed by like the billion things that can kill
Kangaroo.
you there. But
Yeah.
like, yeah, like whatever, man. Like, the what are they called? The funnel web spiders. Like, who knows what else is out there? The rattlesnakes, But I mean, the thing is, it's like there's so many more ways to enjoy my time that don't involve buying a 500K car. It's just like it's like who am I trying to? I'm not. I
How
literally have never tried to impress anyone. It's like
how
I
comfortable
mean
are you with discussing like age and things of that nature?
uh, I mean like I've told people my age. I'm 32, so yeah.
Okay, so you're a few years older than me. I turned 26 a few months ago. So I wonder if in a few years I might hold a more similar like sentiment that you do. But at the moment, bro, I don't know. Like when I think about making it, I do think about that car. I do think about a crazy ass watch for me and like for all like the people that are close to me. I do think about all that shit. I don't know. To me, the thought of like gifting somebody like a $20,000 watch, I don't know, something about it just resonates with me crazy.
No, so I mean, I think, well, for me, if I'm thinking about making a big purchase for any kind of asset that I'm actually going to use, I mean, the first thing would be a home. I think
Yeah,
you're
for
probably
sure.
the same too, where it's like, okay, the first thing I want to purchase is a home, and actual things you're going to use that, they're not these like luxury vehicles. Those luxury vehicles are for people that have like, nine figures. They have way too much money on their hands, and they're like, okay, I'll just buy this, no big deal. But like, for us guys, or I think we're much smaller fish in the pond, and it's like the very
I'm nowhere near seven figures. I'll say that much. Nowhere near seven figures, not yet. But that is the goal after the next bull run.
Well, so we're all going to get there, but it all starts with really just investing everything you have into things that you think are going to appreciate in value. At least in my opinion, not necessarily financial advice. Okay, I'm just saying, but we're all starting off in this situation where, for the most part, most of us are starting off in a situation where housing prices have already been pumped up so much, and most assets in the world today have pumped up to such a significant amount, and it's like, realistically, it's hard to get in early on anything anymore, but crypto is one of those avenues where it is possible. And so I think one of the best investments right now, probably in terms of bets that could pay off big time, would be this space. And so hopefully we all get there. But man, even if you get to seven figures, I guarantee you, like, you're gonna be thinking about that McClaren. But trust me, man, you're gonna have buyer's remorse after you buy that thing. You're gonna be like, oh, I just paid $500K, half my net worth for the shit,
Yeah,
and then all of a
no.
sudden,
I wouldn't do it at seven figs. Not at seven figs. 8 figs for sure.
at 8 figs, dude, man,
At 8 figs, I would do it.
man,
A thousand
you think so?
1,000%.
But like, in order
1,000%.
to, I mean, I would rather have like a dream house, to be honest. Like,
Why
and
not
most
have
of the
both?
time,
Why can't you have both? You make 600K in 1 year. Don't buy shit for that 1 year. Save that 600.
oh
Spend
my
that
god,
60K on your whatever, on your living costs. You have an extra 540, right? Just save that for the year, and then next year buy the McClaren. That's what I would do. Like after you buy the dream home, right?
okay, so we're in agreement now that T-bills might not be such a bad idea.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. I mean, even if there's
Yeah,
like an index,
okay.
bro. Think
Yeah,
about it this
so
way. This is what I would do. I would go riskier, right? The 10 mil, throw it in the index fund, get 20% that year, right? Idealistically, that's 2 mil. Buy 4 McLarens. Now, don't look back. Like what? Like what is the thought
oh
about?
my god, dude. The
No, I'm just
only
joking.
time,
But
like, and the thing is, I mean, you have to think about how illiquid those McLarens are, because it's not going to be every day that you buy a McLaren and then you like, okay, if you're not returning it and if you're trying to sell it, there's not a lot of people in the world that are just going to like come up to you and be like, yeah, I'll buy that. That's the big difference between having a Prius and having a McLaren, is like the Prius is going to be liquid no matter what, at like a CarMax or something. But
somebody could
the moment you
argue
have a
the
McLaren,
same.
all of a sudden, like, you're the pool of buyers that can take that off your hands is very low. I don't know, dude.
I'm glad you
I'm
made
just
this
not
point.
about it.
I'm glad you made this point because this ties into something that I wanted to ask you earlier about crypto, or I mean about
Yeah,
NFTs more specifically, right? So you own a lot of these, very rare or very valuable NFTs. So like that, the profile picture you have right now, how much like Solana would you value that at, or how much did you buy it for actually?
so I actually minted this one.
No way. What a fucking come up. What a mint. How much would you value it at though? Like a few hundred Solana? Maybe a
So,
few.
well, so it did at one point sell for 800,000, but that was OTC. That was even before Famous Foxes, and I ended up doing a return. So I said, no, I want to keep it. Now that was not the right decision, because in today's market, there's no way it would ever sell for that much. So I ended
Yeah,
up
that's what.
taking a bad beat there.
Yeah,
I could have just cut the money and ran, but I would say in today's market, for degen apes, that's a tough call, because, to be honest, there's been a lot of capitulations. But I think with the shutting of V1s and the burning of V1s, the appreciation of value of the mythics will go up quite a bit. But just to be clear, my thesis for Solana is that it is going to be the premier smart contracts platform of the world. And so which basically means that the genesis of Solana NFTs and the provenance of this collection make the mythics like extremely valuable.
Not to cut you off though. The point that I was trying to drive home, right? So let's say you have one of these apes that are worth like let's say like
these are a liquid. There's no question about it.
I was essentially what I was going to say. I'm like, why not trade one of those and just buy the equivalent amount of floor pieces? Because the floor pieces have the highest liquidity. Meaning, like, bro, if the floor goes from like 70 SOL to like 200 SOL, like what's that like? Let's just say for easy math, right? 3x. Like if one of your high-end NFTs are like 500 SOL or 1,000 SOL, it's not going to 3x on the same scale. Like it's not going to go up on the same scale. It will hold the only benefit I see of it is that it'll retain value. It won't fluctuate with the floor prices. But like me personally, I wouldn't ever. I don't think I would be I'm not in a position probably financially to even buy one of those crazy high ones where it would make sense for like my risk assessment for my portfolio. But even if I
love the irony here, the self-reflection, simply because you're like, I don't think I would buy one of those because they're pretty illiquid, and I think it would profit more if I bought just a bunch of floors. But you're talking about buying a McClaren. It's like,
hey, I'm talking about it in the future. It's the future. No, but the thing is, like these apes, I would buy as an investment to make money, right? The car, right the minute I buy it, I would value it at zero. So like these NFTs, right? Like if I had the chance of having 30 floor pieces or one really expensive ape, I would go with the 30 floor pieces every single time. Every single time I would do it.
No, so there are levels to this. There's layers to this. Hold on one second. Sorry, I had to burp. I hope you didn't hear that on your mic. Anyway, so I digress. So this ape in particular is it's considered one of the cleanest in the collections and also one of the most rare. So I would venture to say that this is for sure worth more than 30 floor apes. Like it would sell for more than 30 floor apes right now as we speak.
In the future, when DAA goes nuts and like the floor price, what do you think the floor price will top out at? Maybe not top out at, but like where's like a reasonable floor price you could see for DAA?
So,
like 100 SOL, 150 SOL, 200 SOL.
If the narrative of, as long as that narrative lives on, that it was the first like big NFT mint on Solana, it was pretty much the genesis of Solana NFTs. It really, changed the future of Solana as a whole, as a protocol, as like, a smart contracts platform. Like it actually brought people over here and really made a difference. If that narrative persists and lives on, hold on. I've been coughing, I've been talking so much I coughed a bit. Anyway, I digress. So, if that narrative kind of persists and lives on, then these apes are going to be extremely valuable. If you look at CryptoPunk sales, the aliens ended up selling for like $25 million. One of them sold for 25 million, one of them sold for like 10 million, and so the mythic apes are kind of in like, they're kind of in a similar vein in terms of just being that rare, and being like that aesthetic, if you will. So the valuation I could see in the future would be like a lot more than any floor it could pretty much dream of getting to, if that makes sense. Like,
but what do you think the floor would get to though? Like just the floor. I'm only asking that because there's a follow-up question to it.
Just the floor, yeah. So I mean, it's like tough to say, but
I feel like I can see
right now.
I feel like I could see it hit at least 100k USD per floor. So I don't know how that would translate to Solana. Maybe like 200 SOL, and Solana's going for like 500 a coin. I feel like that's realistic to me. That I could see that being a realistic outcome of this.
I see the Degenerate Apes as being like this extremely like prominent collection, right? And so I think as Solana ages and continues to perform well, the apes will kind of go along with it. Right now, the floor price, that the highest floor price that has ever been reached on Solana was DeGods at 1,000 SOL each, and I wouldn't even consider, there wasn't anything particularly crazy about DeGods. DeGods don't really have like that same level of provenance. They don't have that same history. They're more like just like a hype machine fueled by Frank, you know. So
Yeah.
I see, I really think that the Degen Apes could, I think at some point or another, depending on how much people buy into that narrative or understand how why they were so valuable or why they're so cool. I don't know. It's really tough to say. It really also depends on the team. It's just it is what it is. But I think down the road, like 5 years, 10 years, or whatever, I think these will only appreciate in value with their OG status. And I could one day see I could see the mythic ape selling for like tens of thousands of Sol, like down the line, like a decade from now, or maybe even like more. I don't even know. In USD value, I think they only go up over time. But as far as like Sol value, it's hard to say.
So the point I was trying to drive home. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say that it really depends, but the real difference though between NFTs and a car like a McClaren is that there are ways to generate liquidity that don't necessarily involve selling like a mythic ape at bulk, at market price. You can do a raffle. You can also do fractionalization. So there is more ways to generate liquidity. You can also do party bid, so you can have multiple people use a multi-sig wallet. Whereas with the McClaren, you really have to just find one person to buy it. So
no, the point wasn't the McClaren thing. It was more so like, do you think like one of these really, really rare apes, it's hard to say now because I don't know the exact conversion, but let's say right now you could convert one of those for like 40 floor pieces. Do you think 5-10 years from now it's going to be worth more than those 40 floor pieces?
So let me think here. So 40 floor pieces. So the thing with DAA is that there's a really high premium between the mythic apes and the floor pieces. Do you know offhand how much the floor price got to for CryptoPunks?
Offhand, CryptoPunk. I don't actually.
I think it got
Google
to let me see. I'll just look it up really fast just to check. Highest. Man, I don't even know where to even check it right now. Where do you check that shit for USD price on highest
price floor
USD?
Sometimes has it.
Okay,
yeah, NFT price floor.
What does it say?
It looks like 96.5 ETH was the all-time high in October 2021.
Oh wow! So that's Hold on, let me see here. So you said so is that around? So Han, you said how much ETH at on what date?
96.5 on October 31st, 2021.
Okay, so that was pretty much the all-time high of ETH. So I think I'll say, so yeah, that was around $400,000. It was around $450,000. But you have to remember that alien punk sold for 25 million, right? So 20. So oh my god, let's do the math on this. Yeah, so that floor alien, it was worth 55 floor CryptoPunks at the time. So I don't know, man. The thing
true.
is that the other floor apes aren't really, the floor apes just aren't as recognizable as like one of those like epic mythic apes.
You definitely have one of the cleanest looking apes. I'm looking at how rare is now, how rare is, and it looks like the top 10 are the astronauts. 11 and 12 is the I don't even know what this is called. The Roman the Prince Charming. That's what it's called. Yeah, the Prince Charming. Yeah. 13 is a zombie. 14 is Jordan, which is, I don't know why number 15 is also an astronaut. Oh, it doesn't have the
space helmet.
The helmet, yeah. And then yours is 17, and I would argue that out of all of them, this Biggie Smalls one with the halo and the purple background and purple fur is pretty clean too. But I think yours is probably the cleanest in like the top. I'm going down, and I don't really see any that I would argue are cleaner than that one. So in terms of recognizability, yeah, or recognition, I don't even know what the proper word would be. It's so
Yeah, there's a few apes that I think are just super good looking. There is
Hair
another
one is
Harambe
crazy
Halo
too.
ape. Yeah, there's a Harambe Halo ape that has the silk robe and it has a cigar in its mouth that's an albino. That one's really cool. It doesn't have both a mythic rare trait and a super rare trait. So it has a singular mythic trait, but then it doesn't have the super rare traits. So that makes it like less rare, but it's still really clean. So there's some debate about which one is like the actual cleanest in the collection, but I would say mine for sure is like, I mean, not to be biased, like I've kind of assessed this. I try to assess it from like an eagle eye, from a third point of view, from the outside looking in. But I would say Halo Crayons for sure. The ape that I have it has to be one of the cleanest, if not, in the top three, top
It makes
five.
sense. The whole thing is essentially the whole thing is black and white with the gold halo.
Yeah.
And then the only the only real colors are the crayons. Personally, my favorite color, scheme is black and white with gold hints on anything. It could be anything. That's my favorite color, color scheme. So that's essentially what you have. It's all black and white, gold halo, and then the crayons for a little bit of color. In terms of cleanliness, that shit is crazy. Like the astronauts are cool. The spacesuits are cool, but it's like, dude, it's not an ape wearing a suit,
Yeah, it's like so the astronauts are really dope. I like the astronauts quite a bit, but in terms of like the color, the aesthetic, and like how it comes together, I think this one is really close to being unrivaled. It is for sure like top three in my opinion, but also Crayons is really signature to DAA. The joke is like calling people crayon eaters and stuff like that. So that combined with the fact that it has the mythic halo, it kind of comes together and ends up being just like one of the top in the collection. So this might sound a little over the top, but I literally I paid for another ledger just for this ape, and I have put it into a deposit box somewhere in the country, and it can't be accessed for like over a year. So just the level of like prep that went into like I never want to lose this thing is quite high.
What if you went there though and the security deposit's just not there? Like one of the guys fucked up and it's gone.
So I do have methods of handling the OPSEC. If there are ways to deal with it, so I'm not too worried. Like if some brainlet decides, well, what's this, and then they try to access the ledger for whatever reason, and then they get the code wrong 3 times, then it wipes the ledger, right? But there are ways to recover it, and so I do have the seed phrase
for the ledger.
Yeah, so I won't reveal exactly, of course, how I've stored that, but yeah.
I can explain mine if you want, which is actually super funny. What I did is, this is when I first got into crypto and I first bought my ledger. What I did is I made a new email account with 2FA. I opened Google Docs. I wrote a 2-page essay that had all, I think 20, I'm pretty sure it's 24, all 24 words of my 24 keys. I wrote them in the 2-page essay, and I wrote it in a way where if I read it, I know which ones are it. But if somebody hacked my email and got past 2FA somehow, and then got access to that essay, they would have a really hard time figuring out like what the keys are. That's how I understand. Some people do some intense shit. I had a friend who bought like 24 flash drives and just put one word on each of the flash drives and hid the flash drives. Which that seems a little fucking crazy, but I get it. Like essentially, like a lot of people's like life savings are on these things.
Yeah, no. Unfortunately, there. Sometimes you just got to go to great lengths because there's just a lot of money on the line. I've been extremely good about covering my tracks and making sure everything's fine. So I mean, you kind of have to be able to do that to be able to survive 3 years straight, and not get rugged in the process, among other things. So, but yeah, so far the OPSEC has proven to be pretty viable, pretty useful, and it's pretty foolproof. And I'm pretty open with my identity, to be honest, to some degree. Like I posted pictures of myself, and I've used emails, but I'm not too worried about people figuring it out. But yeah, just in case, I don't say anything.
I got you.
But either
I'm
way,
pretty
yeah.
similar
So
on that.
to come back around full circle, it's having a mythic ape is not necessarily 100% ideal when it comes to liquidity. You're absolutely right. But some of these apes are just like, they're so valuable. It's not a good idea to let them go now, especially because of just that significance, right? Like, I mean, there's a chance you wouldn't really be able to sell for that much at the moment, but down the line, like, there is a pretty good chance this sells for like over 10,000 Sol. That's not even a joke. I'm pretty serious. Like, if we really believe in Solana as like a smart contracts platform that it's going to take over, and I'm telling you, man, it's almost a certainty. Yeah, I see it as a certainty because
I do too.
we were talking about
I'm in
we were
agreement
talking
with
about
you. It's funny when you talk to like people outside of crypto about this. Like I was telling a friend, I'm like, he was asking about like investing in Bitcoin. I'm like, dude, if you imagine you like, cause he thinks it's gonna go down. So I'm like, all right, so if it hits like 12K and you buy a ton of it, just sell it when it hits all time high again. Like you'll essentially like 5-6x on it. And then he's like, yeah, but that's assuming it goes back to all time high. So like in my mind, that's a given. It's gonna happen, right? So I'm with you on the Solana train too. A
well
10,000 ETH is a little crazy, but hopefully it
the
gets there.
thing the thing with the Solana trade is that it's like, okay, most people are going to look at Bitcoin and Ethereum first, right? And then, but what's going to end up happening? I guarantee this is a certainty in my opinion. Like, there's going to be new use cases that come out for blockchains, and people are going to run towards them in order to try to derive value and to capture value from those new use cases. A great example of this is like GameFi, right? Gaming, just playing these games and collecting items and selling them online, right? And so people are going to want to do that, but when they go to Ethereum, they're going to fucking hate it because they have to pay these extreme fees. And so there's going to be a demand for block space like no other. And who's going to be there to capture all that block space? It's going to be Solana. Like, it to me, it's like a certainty. Like, it's going to happen. Cardano's not going to have the infrastructure. I don't even think they have smart contracts still figured out on there, or if they do, like, I don't even know if they
That's a
work
funny.
correctly.
That is a funny community. That's all.
Yeah,
that's,
like,
that's
yeah, it's so yeah, there's Cardano, which I don't even know if it works. I mean, there's Ripple, which isn't even like a real chain. I mean, there's like, there's Matic, there's Polygon, but the thing is like, you still have to pay like $1, or like during a bull run you're gonna have to pay much more than 3 cents per transaction. But when people try Solana, all their friends are going to talk about it. Everyone's going to, word of mouth is going to travel. Everyone, people are just going to congregate there. They're going to use it. It's going to be super sticky. And then all these big whales that come over, they're going to be like, okay, well, what are the collections that are really cool that, we want to buy some of these because Solana is just so great, right? And then DAA and SMB are probably going to be like the two that they're looking at for like, like Providence or whatever, and then I think for gaming it's gonna be Aurory, but it's gonna happen. And if you own one of these mythic apes, if you own like those degen apes, I really think it's a great bet long term. That's kind of how I see it.
what do you think about what do you think about the Saga phone release and how bad it flopped in terms of the actual press release? Because I know I know you sent like a tweet or two about it. I don't know your actual opinion about it. To me, that shit, it wasn't on my radar, and then I was seeing a lot of people tweet about how it wasn't on their radars either, and I'm like,
Oh
why
yeah,
did this not reach us? I don't get it.
it literally just came out of nowhere. It was like, oh, okay, here it is. Now, I have some theories about why it happened, but I think it's a bit of a stretch, so I'm not going to say them. But yeah, it was a little bizarre. They just kind of randomly decided, okay, we're just going to do it today on this day, and I don't know why they. I don't know, but what I will say is this: is that regardless of them doing that, regardless of that happening, um, I'm not even worried about it because it's the same thesis. It's the same story. Like, Solana's innovating. They've actually created a phone, that people can use for to interact seamlessly with Web3 and with dApps and stuff like that. And so that's like a big step forward, I would say, for being able to supersede App Store legacy. Basically old guard
Yeah.
gatekeeping, if you will.
How do you buy one of these though? Not to cut you off. I just quickly went on to the
So you
website.
had to
Did
pre-order it with get a Saga Pass, and then after you get the Saga Pass, you would be able to pay for it online for the rest of the amount. Which I just did that today. So
did you
I have
pay
a
with
Saga.
a
I have a
credit
Saga.
card or did you pay with Sol?
No, you can pay with a credit card or you can pay with USDC.
Oh, okay, USDC. All right, because I'm on store.solanamobile.com and it says connect wallet to buy, and I'm like, oh, if they just did it through crypto, that'd be kind of funny.
No, you can use Solana Pay and USDC to buy it, but I think you're not allowed to. You're not able to buy it until May 15th or something like that, unless you have the Saga Pass and you have a pre-order paid for. So, I was able to actually get it through that.
Did
So
you I think these Saga passes are selling on Magic Eden for like 5 soulish, I believe,
I would
something around that.
I would be Yeah, I would be careful about buying any of those now because the moment that you buy a Saga Mobile, I believe it changes the NFT that you purchased it with, and at that point, you can no longer pre-order another one using a Saga Pass. So basically, what that means is some of the Saga Passes that are on the market right now are no longer usable.
Oh,
So
so they used theirs to buy the phone, then they started trading it, or they.
yeah, so well, I had that option to do that. So I was looking at hyperspace, and there was there was an open bid for 5 Sol, and I was like, oh, I could just sell my Saga Pass right now and take 5 Sol. But I was like, it feels a little bit grimy, and it's only 5 Sol, so I don't really give a shit, and I'm just gonna hold on to it. But sure enough, the people just started selling them off, and I think the floor has gone down quite a bit on those because it's like, well, what's the point of holding on to them after you've already paid for the Saga Pass? So some people pretty much just got a free Saga Pass and just got free money, basically.
Are
So
you
kind of weird.
are you iPhone or Android?
So I have an iPhone at the moment, but I guess technically I would have an Android too now that I've
Yeah, you're gonna
purchased the
have
phone.
one.
So,
It's they have. I'm on their website. It says USB-C charging cable with data privacy, but I can't click on anything to read more. So I wonder exactly what they mean about that, or what they mean with that. It is cool, bro, to have. If this phone is, I'm hoping this phone helps mass adoption in some way because there's not many people. Like, there's kind of a duopoly, duopoly. I can't
yeah,
fucking talk today, bro. It's so late. We've been in for like 3 hours. My brain is fried, but yeah,
all good.
it's literally just Samsung and Apple. That's it. That like they and then Huawei came out the cut, and there's some security concerns with Huawei. So now that's not really a viable contender. So if Saga somehow becomes the next like phone competitor, Solana itself is gonna just go crazy, based just backing that.
Yeah, so I don't know how likely it is that the Saga will become a competitor. I mean, it is an Android, so there's that. I'm pretty sure it's an Android phone.
It is,
So
yeah,
it's
it's an
just
Android phone.
this, yeah. The difference is that the software, and I guess there's the Snapdragon thing that they have, or whatever. With the it's basically like as safe as a ledger. So there are some differences. But I don't know, man. If it becomes like the go-to crypto phone, that would be really impressive. And they sort of like could go that route if they integrate MetaMask with like Ethereum and just integrate
They
other mobile
should.
wallets in
I think
their
they
app store.
should. I feel like they need to. Unless, man, maybe they don't need to. But do you see any security concerns at all with the phone?
Yeah.
Like, it's always scary buying a new piece of technology, especially if a lot of your money is tied to it. So I don't know if I'd personally want to buy one just yet.
So I bought one because the likelihood that well, so here's the thing. So if you buy one, you automatically get access to minting a couple things. You get a lot of perks. So there's pretty good odds actually that you make your money back. Um, that's
Oh,
not
that's cool.
financial advice, but for example, by buying a phone, you actually are able to mint the new Claynosaurz 2000 collection. So I don't know. There's that, right? So I mean that and that could potentially net you half of your money back or something like that for purchasing the phone.
That's cool. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm glad they did that with. Uh,
As
do
far,
you do
yeah,
you do you own Claynosaurz? Is that is that an NFT collection you?
uh, oh yeah. So let me talk about yeah. So okay. So my general thesis for Solana NFTs is, or for my thesis towards NFTs period, is that you typically want to buy something where you can see the IP become, having escape velocity and kind of moving beyond it's the dark corner of Web3 and becoming something greater. Maybe maybe it goes to theaters, maybe it becomes a video game, maybe it becomes like a show, and Claynosaurz is definitely what I would consider to be one of the big three of NFT collections that I think could do it. So I think Degen Apes. I don't know. It's kind of tough. Like Monolith is just a different guy, and it takes him a while to kind of create these really cool, art pieces. So I don't know how likely it is that Degen Apes should become like a really prominent IP, but it is industry grade art, so that's why I evaluate quite a bit. Aurory is like creating a game, and then Claynosaurz has its own art studio. So and they have people that have created multiple like Pixar level movies, right? Like they have a serious team of people that just are quite great as animators, and so that gives it a lot of IP potential as well. Those are like the three great NFT projects on Solana at the moment.
I had no
I'm not.
idea.
I'm a
Actually, I had no
bit
idea
more
about
apprehensive.
Claynosaurz, but I had no idea that they had a real backing. I clicked on it real quickly, and I thought it was a little. I don't want to say silly. It's super realistic art though, and if there's any chance this IP can turn into a real movie and turn into like a franchise sort of, I understand why people are bullish on this.
Well, yeah. So I mean, that's the whole thesis behind buying these IP-driven NFT assets in the first place. Is you have these communities that come together and they rally behind these JPEG projects, but it's like, okay, that's great and all, but like, is this ever going to get to theaters? Is it ever going to become a big brand? Like, who's really going to care about this stuff? And it's like, okay, you have all these like crypto whales that are like, in a circle jerk, posting their pixelated monkeys, but it's like, I mean, what do you think is going to end up being more valuable? I mean, those, these dark corner of Web3 projects are like something that goes to theaters and is just this massive prominent brand. It's for sure going to be the massive prominent brand in my opinion. It's just like, I mean, you just have so many more interested buyers, right? The floor is so much more liquid. The top end rarity of that collection just becomes so much more appealing to high net worth investors. It's the brand is much more visible. They care about it more, right? So that would be a reason why you would want to be interested in one of those three collections, especially Claynosaurz, because they could end up releasing a movie.
You know what it
There
reminds? You
could
know what they remind
be
me
one.
of? Yeah, remember the Land Before Time?
Yeah. I mean, the dinos,
That's
dude.
yeah, that's exactly what it reminds me of.
Yeah, no. So I mean, they have a totally. I could for sure. I mean, not only do I think they could be, I think they almost absolutely will be in theaters at some point because their entire team is like, all they have to do is sell the IP to some producers, and then the producers will literally take their IP and just take their art studio and just say, okay, let's make a movie, and then that's going to be it.
Yeah.
That's a wrap, and then the rest is history. So they have experience making several movies. I think they've helped create several Disney, Pixar movies and stuff like that. So they
Oh,
definitely have the team to do it.
a question I wanted to ask you earlier, but it kind of slipped my mind. Why do you think major, like well-established companies aren't dabbling into the NFT world? So, like for example, when I was growing up, I was super into Yu-Gi-Oh. Like that was my shit, right? I loved playing the game. I loved watching the show. Collecting cards was dope too, and I feel like that could so easily transition into an NFT collection because, bro, they already have a game for it. Like they have so many games on like PS2, PS1, PS2. There's PS3 games. They have like everything they need. I don't get why they don't. Like it would satisfy me at my core if Konami dropped a Yu-Gi-Oh NFT collection where you can buy and sell cards, and those cards that you can use in the actual game or into a game or whatever like Web3 universe they have.
Yeah, they're trying to do that with Parallel on Ethereum. So like that is probably one of the most obvious use cases you could have for NFTs is to just have NFT trading cards and allow people to be able to buy and sell cards and trade them, and you'd be able to check the supply of each card and be able to value them based on that, and like it would be such a super obvious use case. Right now, I think the problem is that NFTs, a lot of people are still apprehensive towards NFTs. They don't really understand them. There's a lot of grifting in the crypto space. So, NFTs do get like a bad rap to some degree. But the truth is, I think eventually they will come around when they see how successful these AAA games and like studios can be while integrating Web3. I think Aurory, Alluvium, Bored Ape Yacht Club, some of these other companies that are building these AAA games that are going to eventually come out. I think they will really showcase just like how interesting and or how interested and how prominent they become. I think a lot of people will just show a lot of interest, and then that's when companies like Konami will finally be like, you know what, we could just create our own NFT collections and just integrate NFTs, and why not, right? And then they take a cut of royalties on each sale. It makes total sense.
Same
I just
with
think that
I feel like
there's still a
Pokemon
lot
could
of
do the same thing. Yeah, I agree though, because there's a lot of like the risk to reward is like you're risking your whole brand that you built, that you spent, I don't know, 30 years building for it to like ride a quote unquote trend that like that's what they might view it as. It's just like a trend that's going on. So I can understand too, but like, man, personally, I would be so satisfied if I if I could get like a blue eyes white dragon on the blockchain and there's only like 4 of them, bro. And say that'd make me the child in me would be so happy.
I mean, yeah, I know that you're absolutely right. It's just the problem is there are other people who just have to take the risk now so that those companies can kind of decide for themselves later on if they want to do it. And Aurory is one of those companies for sure. Aurory is like probably, I'm going to be honest, Aurory is like the only one besides Bored Ape Yacht Club that actually kind of looks promising from a AAA standpoint. It's kind of embarrassing, but hopefully
When you say AAA for the viewers, what exactly do you mean?
so AAA is a classification of game quality. So when you think about AAA games, you're thinking about something like that would be released on the latest Xbox model or the latest. I mean, like Fortnite is a AAA game, right? But something that's like really pixelated on Steam might not be a AAA game, if that makes sense.
So like
Right?
Hogwarts Legacy, right? Recently, Hogwarts was a fucking crazy game. So
we're talking like high budget. You're probably spending $100 million just to develop the game, like really prominent, like maybe something like Super Smash Brothers Ultimate. I mean, just a lot of money to develop a really high class 3D quality game experience. And right now, nothing like that really exists in crypto except for some alpha. Some alphas. Like right now, Aurory is an alpha. Bored Ape Yacht Club, let people play their alpha, beta, whatever it was. But aside from that, there's very few that really have a working product that people can try and mess with at the moment.
yeah,
So that's really the whole thesis behind Aurory, by the way.
Yeah, I hear you. It's crazy that Aurora's they're only trading right now. They're hovering at like 26 SOL. I got lucky. I bought mine for like 20.5 the other day. It's like I got real lucky with this purchase too.
Yeah, so imagine so right now the price of Aurory is really the price of the Aurorians is really cheap, right? But imagine if down the road the game comes out and the IP becomes a lot more recognizable and prominent, and the brand gets bigger, and so many more people end up starting to play it, and they release a mobile version of the game. Like all of a sudden, you have so many more eyes on it, and the floor becomes a lot more liquid. And do you kind of see where this is going, right?
1,000%.
Right now, nobody's really thinking about the long-term view of IP that reaches escape velocity. But the problem is, no one understands that you only have 10K NFTs, right? So it's like when you reach an audience that big with a product, all of a sudden the valuations of those limited 10K supply, collections goes up dramatically.
Another
Right?
thing too, that I don't think people anticipate is like augmented reality. So VR and AR isn't that technologically like advanced yet, but imagine 5 years from now or 10 years from now, you can enter a world that's on, let's say, Solana's blockchain, and if you own an Aurorian, you can use him in the game, and then you see one of these 10,000 like Aurorians, and imagine like this. Imagine the scale, right? Like we have 8 billion people on the planet right now, so imagine like 500 million people in like 20 years or whatever is on AR. So only 10,000 of those are Aurorians. People don't understand the value in that either. Like people buy Rolexes now because like they're like a signaling good. So when we live in like some augmented reality or a virtual reality completely, the rarest NFTs are going to be even more valuable, because right now this is only on our phones and this is only on the internet, right? It's not really in our day-to-day. Like we can't really like show off the NFTs we have. But when everybody is living in AR and we can show off our collection or like our avatars, the valuations are going to be even higher than they are now. And I think nobody is really anticipating it from that angle. And that's obviously like maybe like a 15, 20, 30 year angle. So I can understand why a lot of people aren't thinking about it that way. But imagine the technology advances sooner and we can see it in 5 years. Like right now, Aurorian has a game where it's a free world and you walk around with your character. But I understand it's only in that game. But when when there's one blockchain that you can have any of your NFTs on, I feel like that's when that'll really like come into fruition.
Well, so here's the thing too, right? Is like, okay, so we're talking about the metaverse, right? And how, eventually you'll be able to use your NFTs and these PFP NFTs to walk around with a 3D model. But it's like, okay, let's talk about what projects could actually create something like that. And the truth is that a lot of them, a lot of the NFTs that are currently valued quite highly at the moment, they don't really have the teams right now to do something like that. But ironically enough, Degen Apes, Claynosaurz, and Aurory all have these professional industry grade teams that can all create something like that. But nobody is really thinking about this from a long term, like IP, like metaverse, point of view where they reach a big audience. Right now, people are just kind of like congregating around collections that have a lot of hype and volume, but they otherwise don't really understand what is going on in the grand scheme of things, and like where this could potentially go versus where it is right now. And so it is what it is, and it's like it's been kind of frustrating with that. So that's why I focus just on trading charts now. but I still buy Aurorians because I still think they're really undervalued. And then I also try to buy like if I see a cheap mythic Degenerate Ape, I'll just buy it. But aside from that, it's just that's kind of where I stand on things. Like if it's not those three, then no one else is doing it. At least on Solana.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, I think I'm trying to think of another.
Maybe there's an
Yeah,
argument for like OK Bears, but like they're mostly 2D art, and you know what my issue with them is. I'm not okay. Not to hate on OK Bears, and I think they've heard this probably a million times. But they are really inspired by a Bored Ape Yacht Club, and so I think I mean, it literally, if you look at one of the bears that don't even have like any traits, you'll notice
yeah.
like the fur on their chest and like a lot of like their teeth, like a lot of them are just super duper inspired, and like to the point where it's like, okay, this is a little much, and so I don't know, but people still like that collection, so I don't know, it is what it is.
You really think that Bold Badgers isn't in a position to go Web3 metaverse?
What? I didn't say that.
Imagine though. What about
Oh
galactic
yeah,
geckos though? On a
yeah,
serious
no.
note, what about galactic geckos? I feel like geckos could
So
maybe have some.
okay, so now don't get me wrong, I like the leader of GGSG. Genuine Articles is a super cool dude, and he has a lot of money. So but as far as I know, GGSG is a I don't know if it's ever going to reach that point. I think really the only collections on Solana that could ever reach that scale it's either DAA, Claynosaurz, or Aurory, and pretty much everything else is kind of it's like no contest. Now, granted, I mean, I could see maybe like down the road, maybe OK Bears could become like a, you know, maybe it becomes like a 2D cartoon series or something like that. Who knows? But aside from that, it's like
When I look at
just don't.
Galactic Geckos, though, I do see like
A cartoon
what's
series as well.
what's when it's Cartoon Network, Adult Swim. I could see like an Adult Swim like cartoon show come from this, because it has all
Yeah,
like the aesthetics look like if it was like midnight and I'm watching like TV, and this random show pops up. I could see these on TV, Adult Swim.
yeah, no. I mean, there is like it's absolutely in the cards. So there is that. So it's not out of the but what the problem is though is that the Galactic Geckos, it's a DAO. So they don't the original artist isn't in house, and so they don't really have well, okay, when I say he's not in house, they might be paying him still. But it's like he by himself alone, he wouldn't be able to really like. I don't know if he'd really be able to do it. They would need a studio to purchase the IP, and so I don't know how likely that is to happen, but maybe it does someday. I don't know. So it's one of those things where it's like you can never be too sure. Maybe it happens, but I would say the closest at the moment, for that being a likelihood, is absolutely Aurory, Claynosaurz, and then like maybe DAA. I think DAA is probably the least likely. Only, even though I love them like so much, it's just that Aurory already has the money and Claynosaurz already has the studio, and so Monolith is just kind of by himself with DAA. But the DAA IP is actually pretty good, I would say, for the most part. It's not it's definitely not kid friendly. It's very adult. It's kind of like
Definitely.
yeah, I would say it's like the South Park of Solana NFTs, if you will. But at the same time, I do think I could absolutely see a series spawning from that. Just these degenerate, stupid apes. Like, I think it'd be a pretty fun show. But that's kind of where I would say my money would be at. And I do have Claynosaurz in other wallets. So just to clarify that. So I have DAAs, then I have Aurorians, and then I have Claynosaurz. So
You said you have like what, 50 Aurorians or something?
yeah, I'm trying to get to 100.
Good luck. I mean, what would that be?
So I could buy right now, but the thing is that um I expect Sol to keep on pumping at this point. So my goal is to try to trade Sol correctly, and usually when Sol pumps, NFTs dump, and
Yeah.
so. But I am trying. Yeah, I'm trying to just buy up a ton of Aurorians and get to around 100 Aurorians, and then I want to have at least 100,000 Aurory, and then my bag's set, and then I'm just gonna walk away from Aurory. I'm just gonna leave it as is and just let them do their thing.
Yeah, I think Aurora is a great
Because
token to like DC into. What's that, like 0.6 or something, like 60 cents?
yeah, so someone bought like 69,000. Someone, so it's like around $70,000 of Aurory like the other day, but it's kind of like it was kind of weird to do that. But yeah, hopefully they don't like just buy it up to a bajillion. But if they do, that would only increase the price of Aurorian. So I guess I wouldn't mind too much. But yeah, the reason why is because I mean when you compare market capitalizations of these GameFi projects, Aurory is probably priced at the lowest simply because it's on Solana, and a lot of people just don't know it even exists. But the moment that people start finding out about it, it's just going to pop off like crazy. It's probably one of the most undervalued projects at the moment. So my plan is to get my allocation in after this mega soul pump of 2023.
Yeah, dude, I hear you. So it's been 3.5 hours. I feel like
Yeah,
we could talk all night, to be honest.
my throat hurts. Yeah.
I feel like we could talk all night, but I feel like we did touch up on a lot of stuff, and I don't want to be too redundant. I do heavily appreciate you taking literally 4 hours out of your day to talk to me about literally whatever we wanted to talk about. Definitely appreciate it. Hopefully, we have more conversations down the road. Is there anything else you want to end off with?
So basically, people should buy Degenerate Apes.
Awesome.
People should buy Aurory. People should buy Solana.
NFA.
If you're into, who knows, it might go down, but I'm really bullish on those things. So all investments have risk. Okay.
None of this
Aside from
is
that,
financial advice. All NFA.
yeah, it's all NFA. Aside from that, I would say, I don't particularly dislike any collection on Solana. I kind of like, I definitely let go or let off some spicy takes with SMB. But I do enjoy their community quite a bit, and who knows, maybe they end up just being this really big deal down the road, and it is what it is. But aside from that, not really. It was a pleasure. I wasn't doing anything. I was literally just laying in this truck. I'm just kind of like bored, to be honest. I'm either shit posting on Twitter or waiting for a new gig, so it's just no big deal. And so maybe sometime down the road we'll definitely do this again. My throat hurts, so that's pretty much all I gotta say for now. There's so much talking.
All right, sounds good, bro. Thank you again. Definitely appreciate it. And to everybody listening, thank you for listening, especially if you listened to all of this.
All right, peace out.
All right, see ya.